Hello and welcome to Watching Worst Films. Ordinarily, we are your guide to Razzie history, journeying through the Golden Raspberry Award winners each week. However, long-time listeners will know that every 4 weeks we like to take a break and cover something outside the Razzie remit, which is why we are bringing to you our latest special, The Career of Kevin Smith.
Yes.
My name is Jericho Reed. With me, Kyle Szymanski.
Hello.
And Kyle, would you like to explain why we're covering the career of Kevin Smith?
I can try. Kevin Smith is someone we have spoke about probably our entire friendship, probably about 15 years now.
Yeah. First conversation while stacking shelves.
Yeah, while we were clerks, we talked about clerks. Yeah, like it's someone who's, I don't know why, so intrinsically linked to our discussions all the time. It's a fascination, it's an obsession, it's a strange one for both of us. I think he is very lucky not to be on this podcast in general, not just coming on because he loves the podcast, but he has escaped quite a lot of like Razzie recognition as well, which is a massive surprise for me. I expected post 2001 he'd be picking up something every odd year or two, like a nomination here or there. So I do think he is deserved to be covered in this. I think it's a fascinating discussion between us because we are very different when it comes to Kevin Smith. We are it's a strange one, it's an exciting one. Yeah, he's definitely a director, he's a filmmaker that should at least have a nomination. It surprises me to no end he's not.
Yeah, he's a weird one, and I'm a little apprehensive going into this because I don't want to be a hater. Like, I recognize the appeal. I know that he means a tremendous amount to a lot of people. And again, disclaimer alert, he seems like a really cool guy.
Oh, I have nothing personally against Kevin Smith.
As much as I'm going to personally eviscerate him and his entire being throughout this episode. I actually do respect the man because he seems like, he's living the dream and he's a cool guy who does a lot of cool things that he doesn't necessarily need to.
Yes.
But his movies are bad. And like, he's a weird one where I'm like, he's like, he falls in a kind of like Razzie no man's land for me, where like for most of it, he's just kind of making stuff that's like bad but doesn't quite fall into the like Razzie bad category. Like he's not a Michael Bay of like he's not a big enough headline. Like he doesn't hit you over the head. He's kind of subtly bad in a way that you have to consume him for a while and kind of.
That's why I was saying like post maybe a bit later, 2005 or whatever. It's when he goes a bit more mainstream. Like Cop Out. I expected.
Yeah, exactly, because he's working with Bruno, and you'd think Bruno would shine the spotlight on him.
Yes.
The only way I could see him catching mainstream Razzie attention would be for something like Yoga Hosers, like if Mr. Razzie watched that.
That's too obscure, in my opinion. I would be thinking of that Bosak and Meaty, the Yoga Hosers run. That's the one where I think you are in the spotlight for the first time, probably with big budgets, and people hate you for it, basically.
And he's also working with Johnny Depp. Jonathan Depp is in Tusk and Yoga Hosers, so just about the time that he's kind of getting his abuse allegations, so Mr. Razzie might have caught the scent there. But anyway, I've got my disclaimer out of the way.
You've got it out of the way, yeah.
Please don't come for me, Kevin Smith stands. So, prior to this episode, what was your experience with Kevin Smith?
My washing machine's not too loud, is it?
No.
Okay, cool.
No, at least not on here.
Okay, cool. I'm in a plane, if anyone asks. I'm flying VIP. So
and you've been told to take another seat because you're too fat.
So my experience with Kevin Smith goes back really far. I loved him. I'm not ashamed to admit when I was probably about 13, 14, and prime age, exactly. I knew about Silent Bob when I was younger. Strike Back was about 2001, I believe. And I seen it 11, 12, vulgar, stupid, right up my, South Park type mentality. But Clerks probably seen when I was about 14. And I fucking loved it. It spoke to me. It was different. I caught it late night on TV, and I'm even at this time I'm getting into movies and independent features and sort of auteur work. I hadn't seen this kind of thing. I'd seen pretension, I'd seen quality, but I hadn't seen this kind of homespun charm.
Yeah.
Hold on, is it loud? There we go. So yeah, I
And you've
fell.
landed now? Your flight's
I
taken off?
was just came into the runway, just in New Jersey. So yes, I adored Clerks. It sent me in the next few years to explore his filmography, which we've been up to Dark and Meaty, 2008, I believe.
Yeah.
So those 6 years, 4 years, whatever, I started going through everything. And there was stuff in there I loved. There's stuff in there I hate, but there was a lot I loved. And I sort of landed in Kevin Smith, to me, viewed outweighed the bad. That's how I always sort of pictured him. He was very good at a very specific thing.
Yeah,
When he
absolutely. Yeah.
when he tries, he fails, but I like to see him try. I appreciated that in the early days. So yeah, a lot of time for him. However, there's a however. Everything after this point, other than Tusk, I pretty much despise, or there's a lot of rubbish, let's say. So, the man, I'm not going to personally attack him, but the unfortunate hapless of him, I will attack. Even if that's not deliberate, you try your hardest, you are good intentions. There is, there is a little bit, there's a bit of bitterness in there. This is why Kevin Smith to me is always going to be my anti Robert Rodriguez, who is my hero when it comes to indie filmmaking. Just get fucking done and shoot out the ears, and I'll hire my son. Kevin Smith he's like the mirror image of it. Like he's someone with without the tequila and sanity, you've got this burnt out stoner brain of it. Like that's the difference to me. So yeah, I'm very mixed. But what about you? What was your experience with Mr. Smith?
So I watched Clerks quite late. I think I was at university and I'd been trying to learn more about different filmmakers and people like this Kevin Smith guy, so I watched Clerks. Prior to that, I knew him as an actor because
Okay.
I'd seen him in Die Hard and I'd seen him in Noel Clarke's 4321, which he just has a cameo in reference to the airplane controversy of him being too fat for one seat and being told to book two. So I previously only knew him as an actor and harbored no no grudges against
You
him.
knew him as an actor and as a fat man.
Yeah. Professional getting thrown off a plane or Kevin Smith. And then, of course, like you, I was very familiar with Jay and Silent Bob because, as we haven't mentioned for a while, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was one of the posters on the video shop that we grew up with.
It was huge as well. Like when we walk about 2000, My Beloved Freddy Got Fingered was not in the channel. No one talked about it. Everyone talked about Jay and Silent Bob. It was a cultural success over here.
I wanted to say, Jay and Silent Bob was almost like the biggest movie for 3 years, 2 years of my youth. Just everyone talking about it all the time, everyone quoting it all the time.
Until Team America put it down.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone talks about it.
Yeah, and so this perhaps is something I need to cover now. Is there's an element of well, the people who bullied me like Kevin Smith, so therefore I must not like Kevin Smith, and I must in fact bully Kevin Smith. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was the apprentice. Now I am the master. But yeah, so this is going to be John Derek time for me, and it's going to be therapy of there's a lot of, I'm a little too close to Kevin Smith. But I was aware of the man for a long time before seeing his films, watched Clerks, didn't really like it, and was well, this is universally held up as his best one, so there is no need for me to watch any other films.
Yes.
So I was a young 20-something and was content to let people like things and live their life. And then the pandemic happened, and I became corrupted and twisted by hate. I'm just going to go full Kevin Smith mode here and just throw in as many nerd references as I can. I retreated into my little cave and clutched the ring while becoming sort of wrapped with obsession and hatred and loathing. And I was you know what? I'm gonna watch every Kevin Smith film in the pandemic, and so I watched them all, and I'm now an expert. So that is my experience
You are
with
the
the
expert, yes.
man.
You are the expert. And I will state here I watched Clerks 3 for this
Yeah,
podcast, which broke me. I was refusing to watch it. I adore the first one. I really like the second one. And
yeah,
I just didn't want the third. I just didn't want it. I think I read or heard some of the script readings he did before pandemic, and it was shit, and it was awful and depressing. But I was like, for the podcast, I'll do it. I'll watch Clerks 3. So I think there's
selfless.
3 missing myths I haven't watched that I will be
Yeah,
relying on you. They are all post Tusk. So
yeah,
up until Tusk, I think I'm pretty good. So
cool.
I'm ready. I'm
Well,
ready for this journey.
okay, so Kevin Smith's career began, of course, with the independent movie Clerks from 1994. So prior to this, he had been studying at Vancouver Film School, and he dropped out after maybe even one term. He dropped out after a very short period, being like, I've learned all I need to know. I can stop paying tuition, I can make a movie with that money. And so he dropped out and made Clerks in the store where he was a clerk. And it's a real inspiring story of like he was working days and then immediately shooting and just made it with all his friends and family. So Clerks, you are a fan of Clerks, as you
I
said.
am a fan. There's an asterisk, of course. It's aged like a sack of shit. I can't deny that. I wouldn't recommend Clerks to people these days. Almost,
Yeah,
it's a time capsule. It's very Gen X, very
yeah,
flannel. It's very kid of the 90s. You're gonna relate in some way. It is. It's also aged in terms of like the content because Kevin Smith's a pop culture fiend. He
yeah.
loves it, and at the time it's refreshing. It's different. It's that realistic dialogue between us and Asta
It's
talking away. Like
it's like what if someone gave Tarantino a lobotomy? Because Tarantino was famous for his pop culture dialogue, but nevertheless, it was always like an autistic nerd speaking about pop culture.
but it is.
In the
But Tarantino speaks about it through the lens of other films. So he will take
no, the
no,
Madonna
no, 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 no,
thing.
no, no, no. He will take dialogue the way it's structured and then tweak the pop culture to make it relatable. Like Tarantino doesn't speak like that with Robert Rodriguez. Like there's
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah,
Like he is crafting it. He's working it into these characters, into the way that they would speak as if they were hanging out talking about Madonna. Whereas Kevin Smith writes exactly what him and his friends have said and gets his friends to say what they have said.
yeah. Tarantino's not being like, "Oh, that was a good line on my podcast. Let's
Yeah,
save this and put it into a
exactly.
film 10 years
He's
later."
he's not riffing with someone. He is not
No,
like
yeah,
this. They're not based. Even they might not even. He's a writer. Tarantino's
yeah,
a fucking writer. Unfortunately,
yeah,
Kevin Smith is not a writer, and this is very obvious. But I'm all these things aside, I still love Clerks. There is sentimentality, there is nostalgia, and that's almost part of the joy of it. Like it is a
yeah,
nostalgia piece, and it's like pulling out a Game Boy in a Game Boy
yeah.
again. It's just a blast of the past. So yeah, it hasn't held up in so many regards. It's a lot like the Blair Witch Project, where what was groundbreaking and amazing isn't anymore, and it is
Well, that's what I wanted to say is like Kevin Smith is almost a victim of his own success because we
100%.
are now just living in the Kevin Smith era.
We are.
Congratulations, you've won. Everything is soy banter. Everything is obsessed with the MCU. We're just like you get all you need to know the fact that every other week Kevin Smith is posting a picture of himself crying to Instagram,
Yeah.
being like moved to tears by some piece of shit media.
Uh,
Like he has won.
yeah.
Like there's no need for Kevin Smith because the entire industry is just Kevin Smith. And
Yes.
like at the time, this was like I can understand the nerd appeal of like, oh holy shit, people are speaking about like Darth Vader sucking dicks and whether he could fit them through his mask. Wow, that's the kind of thing that me and my dumbass buddies speak about.
Yeah.
Wow, this is like us. I can understand the appeal of him at the time because no one else was doing it. But
Yeah.
now, unfortunately, like everyone's doing it,
Yeah. And
and he's
and
not getting a paycheck for it. That's the
and
sad thing.
the thing is as well, and what adds to the charm of Clerks, obviously, is the fact there's very little actors. They are
Yeah,
friends and family, and it
yeah,
gives it that home movie charm that you that in later days he has no excuse. You can't get away with it then. But in the original, it works. It gives it that sort of ramshackle. And
yeah,
there's another part of it as well that I do have to defend. It does have jokes. It has funny
yeah,
and it has like I have wrote that joke down. It's made people
yeah,
laugh. Like there's things in here. There's like visual gags. There's dialogue gags. There's a nice mixture and variety of stuff. It is does make you think he is a funny person, and he
yeah,
could
for
go on to
sure.
do more. Like this is the breaking ground.
I can understand why that man of peerless judgment, Harvey Weinstein, would want to groom him, shall we
Mm-hmm.
say, as a future talent. Because on the basis of this, you're like, oh shit, yeah, he's got it. Like, what could this guy do with more resources? Because, like, there is like an abundance of bits here. He doesn't try and coast on
No, no,
anything.
no, no, no,
There's
no.
like it's like that thing we all speak about, that cliche of like musicians with their debut album pouring like a lifetime of experiences into it, and then the second album being like, oh shit, the tank is now empty, and they don't
Wow,
really speak about being on tour for the past.
that is absolutely appropriate for the second movie, but we'll get there. I don't have much else to say on Clerks. I think that hasn't been covered by
Yeah,
probably Kevin himself 20
yeah,
times. I don't recommend it, but I do if you're of a certain age and of a certain like sort of interest. If it's the kind of thing, or if you have going backwards, like fuck yeah,
yeah.
if you love Kevin Smith and want to see where it came from, definitely watch
Yeah.
Clerks,
If you love Kevin
100%.
Smith and you haven't seen Clerks, what the fuck
Yeah,
are you doing?
yeah.
Because that's the Rosetta Stone to everything.
And there will be people like that. This
Yeah. That's a black
I
and white movie. I don't watch that.
I don't love Clerks X. I know that's ego me. That's like
Yeah.
it does slow things. It paces everything wrong. It takes away some of the snappiness, and
Yeah.
the new there's good new stuff in it, but it doesn't it doesn't balance off. So yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend Clerks X. I want to.
Yeah. So I think for me, when I first watched it, I was like, well, I've seen Richard Linklater movies and I've seen Tarantino movies. So again, what is to be gained from this? Because Smith himself has said that Clerks was inspired by watching Slacker on his 21st birthday.
Yeah,
And I'm like, yeah, he just lifted Richard Linklater.
yeah.
It's just like a dumb kid doing his version of Richard
But that's
Linklater.
but that's why it's
So
so effective because it's like a folk song. You're covering it from a generation. You're being a voice to the voiceless. Because the stoners that hang outside fucking 7-Eleven don't watch Linklater, but they might go watch Kevin Smith
you've seen
movies.
School of Rock, Kyle.
On Night Out 4 they haven't.
So I think that was why I was just kind of getting off on a bad foot with him, was because I was like, okay, well, you're ripping off two filmmakers that I know and like, and you're not really bringing a huge deal to the table. But anyway, I rewatched this a couple days ago. So a couple observations. The black and white thing makes this the best thing he's ever shot.
100%. 100%. That's also now it doesn't mean anything, but he is smart enough to know to take that choice creatively, work
Yeah,
around. He
yeah.
could if he didn't go to film school, we could have had day for night Clerks, like you know, like real bad, like just amateur. Like he knows he's smart enough to know what he's doing, and the fact
Yeah,
it's in black and white is amazing. It does make it look timeless. The
yeah,
content's not, but it's his best shot film.
yeah.
It's also the one where like what's his name, Motier. It's still like team
Scott
working with him.
Mosher, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So until he's gone, everything's going to be a lot more held
He's
together.
his Marcia Lucas.
He is
We're not yet in Phantom Menace era
he is
Smith.
absolutely killing
Yeah.
into him. He keeps and again, I don't maybe on a million podcasts explain it more, but it's no coincidence to me once he's dropped out and Kevin Smith's fully in charge that the quality
It's
doesn't
like the
get
Ricky
down.
Gervais and Stephen Merchant
Yeah,
thing.
100%, 100%. I
Yeah.
call it David Lynch, Mark Frost, because once
Hmm.
Mark Frost's not doing Twin Peaks, then it's just David Lynch's nightmares. When David
Yeah.
Lynch isn't doing it, Mark Frost just writes about aliens and nonsense. You need them together. You need them together, or we get wings. But yeah, so I don't have anything else to add. Do you have any more? things on your rewatch? Anything pop up?
Just like the bit where Dante gets called a Nazi. It just kind of, I was watching it and I was thinking, I was like, this does kind of like chime with my experiences of minimum wage employment when he's getting called a Nazi, because I worked for like the vaccination booking line during the pandemic, and I had like people screaming down the phone calling me like a Nazi for that. And like his ear for dialogue when the guy's like, "Have you got a bathroom? One with the you got any of the nice toilet paper? You got any reading material?" I was like, we have 100% had
100%.
interactions like that as
And
that. I was like, it's a really good
they are the
ear
best
for
bits.
characters.
I love the guy that comes in to sell gum, the anti-smoking guy.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful little scene that has nothing to do with anything, but it is got a payoff. And I like the egg guy.
Yeah.
There's so many little jokes, and
Yeah.
even your one in the bathroom has a payoff and
Yeah.
has another punchline on top of it. You wouldn't do that now, and
No.
it is nice. Again, it could be all the friends, like all these film crew buddies pitching in things. Like I think this is a team effort, Clerks, and although Kevin deserves the credit for pulling it together and making it, there's so many little elements of people just contributing here and there.
Yeah, you can tell the fact he collaborates with the same people again and again. It's kind of like a family, the Kevin Smith troupe. The speech about comfort at the end, where he's like, "Hey man, you need to shit or get off the pot. You're always just, sitting here criticizing things, but not doing anything to change your life, and you're just never." I was like, "Oh God, this is." I can maybe understand why I have a visceral reaction of like, "What the fuck does this guy know? This doesn't apply to anyone, least of all me." But I think that does kind of tie into things. Is that like that speech about comfort? Like, he's not comfortable in Clerks.
No.
And this is the last time he had that discomfort of, you can see he's got observations about like people and the shit that you kind of deal with in working in retail. Everything else he just becomes like removed, and it just becomes about like nonsense, really. It's like too far abstracted. But anyway, little fact for you, Kevin Smith originally cast himself as Randall, which is why Randall gets some of the best lines.
Oh yeah.
Thank God he didn't go through with that.
Yeah. I mean, okay, yeah. I'll continue.
And then the version I watched had the missing scene, like the animated
that's
scene.
X, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think I'd ever seen Clerks X before, and it's just a little like fortunate, like a little fortunate accident that ends up helping the film, because if they had actually shot that, like, it just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
When you just cut to them coming back and like, oh well, that was a horrible affair.
Yeah.
That was a scene, wasn't it? When your imagination fills in the gaps, it works.
It's funnier, yeah.
But when you're seeing it, it's like tonally so jarring.
It's awful stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of concludes all I have to say about Clerks.
I'm going to say my last little bit here, because I don't think as we go through the filmography it will pop up. I do want to say that my favorite thing Kevin Smith ever did was Clerks, the animated series. That's not a movie. That's pre Jay and Silent Bob. But I really, really, really recommend it to people. Like, it's so it translates perfectly. It's like 8 episodes. Getting the imagination going. Like, it's probably the most creative he's ever been. And it's also Kevin Smith at his funniest. And all the performances are way better voice acting than live action. And Clerks, the animated series, is the best thing he ever did. And that's my recommendation for starting points for most people. And then go back to Clerks 1 if you continue on. But start at the animated series, people, if you are ever interested.
I'll just say as well, I did enjoy Clerks more on rewatch than I did the first time I watched it. And I think it is partly nostalgia of I've since seen 2 and 3.
Yes.
And it's the fact that I would have been about the age Kevin Smith was when he made Clerks when I first watched it. And now I'm like an old, washed up, sentimental hack. So I guess the nostalgia of seeing as like, oh, and they would continue to make things, and this is where it all began. It has charm, which it didn't have on first watch for me. So I'm not necessarily a fan, but I did kind of enjoy it a lot more, partly because I saw it as the high for what was to come. Speaking of which, we shall move on to his second feature, Mallrats from
Mallrats.
1995.
1995. Swiftly moving on. He's
Yeah,
working hard, striking
yeah,
while the iron is hot. So I don't have as much to say as you probably will about Mallrats. It might have been one of my first Kevin Smiths. I know I seen it, bits of it during Jane Silent Bob. So I watched
yeah,
bits of it. I was aware of it pre-Clerks, but didn't make the connection. I know he wanted this to be first. I think this is the one he was working on first. This is his first script. So like you make Clerks to make this. This is what I actually want to make. You make
yeah.
Reservoir so I can make Pulp. Like I've got to get the bigger budget. Anyway, I fucking hate Mallrats. Everything nice I can say about Clerks that I like about Clerks, throw out the fucking window. I just don't have anything nice. I don't think it's funny. I don't think any of the
No.
performances are good. There's so many like, this is me saying it, it's just bad jokes. Like not there's rape jokes and stuff, and like at the end, and it's just not funny. Like it's not
No.
shocking. It's not funny. It's just juvenile and shit. Mallrats is everything I dislike about Clerks turned up. I quite like the Jay and Silent Bob subplot. They're probably my favorite thing about the movie, which is
I
not.
hate them in later films, which is kind of like a damning
Yeah,
statement
a
that in
hundred percent,
here I
a
cling
hundred
to
percent.
them
That's
as
what
like,
I'm saying.
okay,
Yeah,
they're adding a little bit
they're having fun. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's exactly. I hate them in other films too, but here they are one of the best. Loads of cameos.
Yeah.
A nonsense plot. Stan
Yeah.
Lee. What do you want me to say? What's your opinions?
Very similar to you. It's just funny how like you watch this and you realize that the limitations of Clerks were working in his favor, like the
Yeah,
stuff about like Dante getting shot at the end or
yeah,
whatever it was
yeah,
like, or it's kind of like how the original plan for Good Will Hunting involved some kind of like espionage NSA element of like thank God he had the limitations that he did with Clerks, otherwise we'd have got nonsense like this where it's like uh conspiracy, like political, like like the sort of like everything which isn't just people, everyday people hanging out at a mall shooting with shit is just like, why the fuck is this here?
yep.
Why am I watching like a governor given address? What's Michael Rooker doing? So yeah, no, this isn't. I don't like Mallrats. I also rewatched Mallrats,
Good.
so a couple things to burn through here. The opening at the beginning, a woman says like, "Oh, I." She's speaking about like she's looking through a telescope and she's like, "Oh, these are my lenses, but I need his shaft." And the guy's like, "You need his shaft? Oh, he's giving you his shaft, is he?" And I might have spoken before about Dan Harmon's thing of the Monopoly guy, how he hates in Ace Ventura, where they're like, and that must be the Monopoly guy, because
Mm,
he's like, it's not good writing when you control the world and you can just cast a guy who looks like the Monopoly guy. And Smith is notorious for doing this,
yeah,
where he will just write things that no one has ever said because he's too eager to get to the gag.
yeah,
And so I need a shaft. And I was like, no, like, I was like, technically, I guess a telescope has a shaft. It is a shaft. I was like, no one
yeah.
calls it that. And I looked up diagrams of telescopes, being like, can I find a single one which labels shaft? No, tube. Okay,
Cheers.
great. Because I was like, if you want to have the shaft dick joke, you need to at least work a little bit for it. Have her be a minor or something.
Mhm.
Just and we're gonna get to another one in Chasing Amy, but already he's just notorious for just like contorting the English language in order to get to the most pathetic, immature, crude jokes.
Yep,
We're like,
yep.
come on, craft a little bit, Kevin. Just
Mhm.
workshop it a little bit. This is also, I think, the first instance of the Kevin Smith trope where he has a cameo turn up in the third act to deliver a monologue which basically summarizes the themes of the film and spurs the protagonist into action. So in this film, Stan Lee gives a
Yeah,
big speech about like, "Hey, true believer,
yep.
I would have traded my entire career for just one more day with my lady friend." And it's actually a good first usage where they kind of subvert it and you realize that Stanley's been paid by one of the guys in order to give
Yeah.
that bull. It's like, I gave him the speech from Vulture. Love has wings,
Mm.
like that's bullshit. I don't give a shit about that woman who left
Yep.
me. She's probably jealous of how much money I have. So again, it's kind of testament to the things which would become incredibly grating about him are kind of somewhat smart and slightly subversive in their first usage. Nothing else to say really.
Yeah.
Trivia: Jenny McCarthy auditioned for 2 roles in
Hmm.
this. Her brother-in-law, Marky Mark, was considered for the role of Brody. That
Oh
would have
no,
been
no.
incredible.
Oh
Apparently, they
god.
wanted Leo for TS,
Oh
but
god.
yeah, Mark Wahlberg would have fucking sucked.
Yes.
I don't know if you know, this is actually Zack Snyder's favorite film because it features Batman getting raped in prison, as you see in that post-credit, well, inter-credit sequence where it flashes
Yes.
up like Jay and Silent Bob went on some adventure. Brody now works so ever.
Mm.
Batman is dropping the soap. And a final note: watch to the end of the credits for some reason where he does his little thank yous, and he says, "Thank you to the audience for showing up." Where again, he's kind of charming. You know, he loves the fans. He's like a very grateful guy. He's always expressing how fortunate he is to have the career he has. Which again, I'm just trying to get some goodwill in the bank before I rip him limb from limb like a rabid dog
Mm.
in one of the next films. Okay, so from this, we then move on to Chasing Amy
Jason
in
Amy.
1997. So,
You go first with Jason Amy.
okay, so the context for Chasing Amy, he was 2 votes away from a nomination for Best Oscar Screenplay, or so
Mm-hmm.
he says. So I was primed by Isaiah, who appeared on the podcast for The Postman. He was raving about Chasing Amy, being like, "Man, it's one of the best screenplays like you've ever read. Like, it's so good. It's so good. I know you hate Kevin Smith, but Chasing Amy is so good. Like, it's fantastic." And he's like, there is a parallel universe in which he gets an Oscar nomination. He's like, and honestly, like, it could have won. And so I watched it, and I was like, this is fucking shit. It doesn't. It doesn't deserve the. It doesn't deserve the hate it gets for the like because it's notoriously grouped with Gigli as one of the Ben Affleck turns a lesbian straight
Yes.
double bill double feature. It doesn't deserve
Oh
the
no.
stick it gets there as like that's just kind of like
That's
people projecting onto it.
that's Geely's fault, not Kevin Smith, because this came
Yeah,
out. This is fucking huge. Like Jason Amy,
yeah,
not here, not like culturally, but like critically, it was.
yeah,
It was just like real quick. I don't like Jason Amy. I really don't like. This is what we're talking about with the Jay and Silent Bob stuff in it. I hate it.
yeah,
There's good stuff in here. I like how it's different. I like
yeah,
trying something different, going for like a romantic, serious, for the most part, kind of piece. But yeah, Geely is why people hate Jason Amy now.
yeah,
Because at the time, it's Tarantino's favorite film of 98, 97. He
yeah,
loved it. Like that's it's in the article I was trying to get for the fucking book because this was when he was at peak. Like these first 3 films, like you're doing your Ari Aster run. You know, you're doing your Eggers run. Like it's so exciting to see a new filmmaker like hit the first 3 and see if we're
yeah,
talking about albums. Okay, you went fucking haywire on the second one, but you pulled it back and people love your third one. Like I I don't like the film though.
yeah,
I think it's boring for the most part. I don't like it. I think it's stupid. I don't understand the place for Jason.
yeah.
Like I really don't
Basically,
understand
everything about Kevin Smith, like the caveat for all of these is like, you know what? Like, I can see how this would be meaningful and significant to you if you are an imbecile.
it.
Of
Yes.
I'm like, okay, yeah, if you're a Kevin Smith fan, then this is gonna somewhat unpick your prejudices
Yeah.
because like I can't remember if I don't think she ever says I am a lesbian.
No,
It's
I
just
don't think
like a
so.
1997
Yeah.
view of bisexuality, and it's
Yes.
mostly about the men how they see her,
Yes.
and so I don't think like the idea of like, oh, he turns lesbian straight. I don't think that's fair to Old Smithy when it's slightly more. It's not as bad as that.
I agree. I agree with that.
To single out some of the good things about Chasing Amy, the character, I forget his name, the gay black guy who masquerades like a Black Panther in order to promote his books. His monologue about like Darth Vader being black, I was like, that's genuinely some of the like funniest nerd dialogue that Kevin Smith's ever done. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to see him write from a perspective which isn't his own. I do think that's kind of the film's like greatest weakness is that I'm like, no one who uses as many homophobic slurs as Kevin Smith does should be masquerading as any kind of like queer sage.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah,
he is. I mean, Kevin Smith gets his speech. Silent Bob speaks and Chasing Amy famously. Tell the story of Chasing Amy because
yeah,
it's the title, isn't it?
yeah,
His big fucking monologue with Dan Affleck. Yeah, no, like I don't like Chasing Amy. At the time, like it's again, he's a very much piece of his time in 1990, whatever. This would have been great. This would have been different, fresh,
yeah,
original. It's done to death and it's aged like shit. So
yeah.
yeah, no, it's a no for me.
Yeah, yeah. Just to tackle that Kevin Smith speech. So once again, this is the speech from Mallrats, given that it's a character who just parachutes
Mm-hmm.
in order to deliver a big speech which thematically summarizes the film and spurs the lead character onto action. Only this time Kevin Smith has given himself the plum role and the most dialogue that Silent Bob has in any of these films. All these films combined. Other notes. Oh, so the other Kevin Smith trope he does, the Shaft thing, the Monopoly guy. Ben Affleck says like, "Oh, if you'll excuse the pun, I hope it doesn't queer our friendship." And I'm like, "What? Excuse the pun? That only works if it's like something that could ordinarily be said in
Yeah.
conversation." I was like, "No one has ever said queer our friendship. That is not a phrase which is used by people at all." And yet we're meant to believe like it's some sort of accidental pun just because Kevin Smith is a fucking hack. So on IMDb, it also says this is Ben Affleck's first lead role.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know. You missed your Simpsons joke. The fucking who are we to believe this is some sort of math? I also did it. Okay. Yeah, Ben Affleck's first role, I did not know. I had assumed he had supporting roles. I mean, Mallrats and stuff, but like for
Mallrats, Dazed and Confused,
yeah,
obviously, but
but lead it might be.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
might.
because I guess Good Will Hunting kind of shot them to another level. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. I just obviously always thought of Ben Affleck as like a leading man, but it's interesting that Smith saw something in him. I guess
Mm-hmm.
he deserves credit for that. It's
Mm-hmm.
hilarious that Kevin Smith, like Ben Affleck, is playing the Kevin Smith surrogate in this
Yeah.
film, and so it's hilarious to see him with the shitty facial
Yeah.
hair.
But this
But
is also, you can't give credit to Kevin Smith that this incredibly attractive, chiseled man that can't. I plucked his talent from nothing. Yeah, great. You discovered Jason Mewes, but I'm not giving you Affleck.
So my final note, it opens with Ben Affleck at a comic book signing, and someone goes up to him and is like, "Oh man, Jay and Silent Bob, like Blunt Man and Chronic, are so fucking cool. I love them. They're like Bill and Ted meets Cheech and Chong." And Ben Affleck is like, "Hmm. I
Mm.
always kind of saw them as more like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern meets Vladimir and Estragon." And I was like, "Fuck off, Kevin Smith. Keep keep Samuel Beckett's name out of your fucking mouth. That is not for
Mm.
you, Kevin. You're not dropping Waiting for Godot references. Like, stick to what you know, which is comic books. Which, like,
Mm.
I don't know. Again, I'm kind of too close to the material of like it's kind of like a funny gag about like pretentious artist hates his audience, but
Yes.
it's sickening to hear
Yes.
Kevin Smith try and get high minded. Yeah.
Oh,
So we then move on,
1999.
yeah, with a film which is very close to your heart,
It is indeed.
Dogma.
So, yay, Dogma. Dogma's my favorite Kevin Smith film. Clerks might be my favorite with nostalgia and like subjectively, but objectively, I think Dogma's his best movie. I love Dogma. It's not
Mhm.
perfect. There's a lot of things that if you don't like Kevin Smith, you're gonna hate on a lot of things about it.
Yeah.
But this is a performance-driven film. There's some fucking Alan Rickman, Chris Rock, you've got George Carlin. Like this is Affleck is great in this as well. Matt Damon's fun. Everyone is wonderful. Alanis Morissette is God is so fucking good. So the casting's great. It's a great idea. I know this is written before or during Clerks.
Yeah, that was what I
He
was surprised. It said he'd been sitting on the screenplay, but he
yeah,
knew that he couldn't do it without
and because I know
like a
in
budget.
in the original theatrical cut, it does say Jay and Silent Bob will return in Dogma. Like Dogma will
Yeah.
coming in. And Scott Mosier, I'm using Scott a lot, but I'm sure he has a lot to do with Dogma. I could be going out my ass, but I know he did something like we'll work on it, we'll get a bigger budget, we can't do this, we need to build up. And I feel like his paws are on this a lot more than Kevin Smith because there's a lot of different things in here that don't feel like Kevin
Poor
Smith.
Kevin Smith. Everything good. We're like, someone else did that.
Someone else did that. I think that was Mosier. But anyway, like I love Dogma. I think Dogma's different, original. It's almost clever.
Yeah.
Its performances are great. It's so fun. Even the Jay and Silent Bob part, again, I've been moaning about. I think it's funny in here. I think it's it's a funny trope to make them profits. If they hadn't been used so much up until this point, it would have been even better. The background characters from my first film are actually the prophets. That's funnier to me. But yeah, I fucking adore Dogma, and I really, really do like it. It's so out there, and again, when you're looking at that progression, the career filmography starting to build up. Holy shit, that's great. You made your stoner comedy, a shitty stoner comedy, your romantic, and then this big religious comedy epic thing.
What's he gonna do next?
What are you gonna do next? I nothing bad to say about Dogma, but there is problems. Of course, there is. There's some bits that are outdated. There's some bits that are janky as fuck. Some of it is confusing and stupid. If you just watch it as a movie, though, it's the one I would recommend. It's the one I would say watch Dogma and nothing else, and I think you'd be happy.
Yeah, we can speak about it a little bit later on about how Kevin Smith films, which just aren't Kevin Smith films, when he kind of shapeshifts into just being like a studio gun for hire, like a little bit. Mm-hmm. This is like clearly a Kevin Smith film. No one else could make this. Mm-hmm. And this is probably the most I've been enjoying any of his films, given that my expectations were quite high. I was enjoying it. And then Jay and Silent Bob appear, and it's just down the roller coaster goes.
But there's things in Dogma that make me, again, that's why I'm pushing for Mosier over a little bit, because there's like special effects. There's like puppets and like I think there's stop motion and stuff throughout it. Yeah. Like Kevin Smith doesn't think like that kind of filmmaker. He thinks of how do I shoot in one room with my friends.
Well, yeah, exactly. I forgot to say it, but Chasing Amy has a couple scenes which just drive me mad, because like he's filming like a hockey game and a music concert, and he shoots them both kind of from like a locked off tripod shot, like one angle. And I'm like, you're filming like live events and there's just no dynamism. Like, even if this isn't your specialty, you've got enough money, hire a second unit guy who's gonna shoot like cutaways of like pucks and whatever. Like,
absolutely.
Have something going on.
You get away with that in the claustrophobia of Clerks. Everything.
Yeah.
You can.
And no, Clerks genuinely takes some risks. I think he's more inventive in like the shot composition of Clerks than he is in Clerks 2 or Clerks 3.
Oh yeah. By
that point, he's just entirely locked off.
We'll get
two shots talking to each other.
We'll get there. But on this though, this is exactly my point. Dogma has something. There has a production behind them. There are people that are contributing talent, and again, if it's him or if it's Mosier, I don't mind Mosier, sorry. Someone has ideas. Someone has, we can do this, we can do that. Like, we can, like, there'll be sketches. There's going to be concept design. Like, nothing else in the Kevin Smith universe will have concept design.
Well, I don't think you've seen Yoga Hosers.
I haven't seen Yoga Hosers, so
maybe hold that criticism back, Kyle. Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about Dogma. It's Good Omens with Jay and Silent Bob.
It's better than Good. It's better than Good Omens. I will die on that hill. It is much better than Good Omens.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fight you on it because I'm not sure. I don't necessarily know if I disagree. Yeah. Interesting piece of trivia, which I assume you know. He wanted Robert Rodriguez to direct it.
Yes, he did.
And Rodriguez was like, "No, this is personal to you, man. You have to do this."
That was it.
Catholic boy, and I'm not gonna.
The ones, and I did look it up because. So I did find that, and it made sense with Salma Hayek, and I was like, yes, that could be in the Robert Rodriguez connection and casting or something, like somewhere in the line. You were like, we'll get Salma, we'll put Danny Trejo's on the line. He's ready to like sell. My only trivia I have for Dogma that I have here is being a massive fan of the X-Files, Kevin Smith offered the part of Bethany to Gillian Anderson. According to Smith, Anderson just really hated it. And I thought, that's fucking wonderful. But everything, I don't want Rodriguez to do Dogma. I don't want. I like this film. I wouldn't change it. I like what it is. And yeah, big fan of Dogma. Go on.
Yeah. Because the Rodriguez thing makes sense, because this is like, this is post From Dusk Till Dawn, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of Kevin Smith's From Dusk Till Dawn, and that kind of like genre shifting, like.
Yep, absolutely. And he would have done it well, like.
Yeah.
But no, this had to be Kevin Smith. This had to be his one.
Okay, and from arguably the highlight of his entire career, we then skip forward to 2001 with Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
So my tiny little sub note, I didn't rewatch for this film, for this podcast, but I did want to mention 2000 picture Vulgar, produced by Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier in the You Ask whatever universe. It is starring, of course, Brian O'Halloran, who is Dante, Brian Johnson, the writer, the third of the duo, the other guy, his directorial debut. And I either had this on the Clerks DVD. I had it at some point. I had it on DVD at some point, and I can't remember how I attained it. This film is fucking gross. And it's terrible. It's one of those, if I speak about it, you say what happened, it is vile.
Yeah.
It sounds like a fucking Serbian film or something when you talk about it. But it is also so fucking bad and cheap, and like Brian O'Halloran, didn't talk about him enough in Clerks, and I'll come to him in Clerks 2 and 3. He ain't an actor. He ain't got it, son.
Yeah.
So they put him in a horror movie about a clown that's getting raped, gang raped, violently, and killing people. Is so fucking weird and bizarre. I think in between Dogma and Jay and Silent Bob, they're doing this. I just wanted to talk about it. It slips under the fucking radar, but the clown image is still in the logo. So I always think of Vulgar anytime I watch a Kevin Smith film. And I never recommend it, but it's a weird little. If you're a completionist for Kevin Smith, animated CDs and Vulgar is what he's doing in 2000, and it's fucking weird. Yes. Let's move on.
No, I also watched Vulgar, and I was gonna give it a tip of the hat at the end in other projects, because you had told me about Vulgar, and there's nothing to add to what you said. It just seems like the kind of thing like dreamed up by like an edgy 13-year-old, and yet grown men made this. And the thing is, it's not even bleak enough to be like a Serbian film.
That's why I'm saying. When you say it, it sounds awful. But when you watch it, you're like, oh, shit.
It just it jumps between like a clown being gang raped and then like meandering like subsmith dialogue of like, I guess maybe I'm traumatized. Maybe I need like a Bacta tank. Maybe I need to take a bath in a Bacta tank for a couple months, because how am I ever? It's like, if it was as bleak as as it sounds, that would be something. But so Vulgar is fucking weird. So moving on to 2001's Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Right, so let's get to it. I've seen this film quite a lot. Like I said, I've seen it as a kid. I revisited it as a teenager, and I revisited it as a grumpy 20-something-year-old. I don't know what my opinions are on this. It is the epitome of Kevin Smith. It's the peak, pinnacle, it's the climax. It's the most Kevin Smith of Kevin Smith. Let's just say everything turned up to 11. I don't hate it. It's to blame for the modern pop culture world more than Clerks. This is. It's got Mark Hamill. Like, it got him back into being like everything that is wrong with the Marvel world and pop culture world is this. But despite my hate at certain times for it, there's too many bits I really, really like. There's too many funny jokes in it that really piss me off that I genuinely like.
Yeah.
And I it's almost like, well, what can I do if you hit my 3 laughs way more? You overshoot my 3 laughs minimum. So I don't recommend it. Awful. It's dated. It's Kevin Smith. It's Kevin Smithiest. But there's so much I really enjoy about it at times that I'm ashamed to admit. guilty pleasure almost at times. Yeah, but it isn't good. It's a good way to just be done with it though. To be done with all the Jay and Silent Bob stuff. I'm never going back. I'm just wrapping it up with a big movie. Never, 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 never again will you see these two people again. In that kind of regards, it's very fitting as a send off. Obviously, in hindsight, it's not. But yeah, what's your opinions?
So I am way too close to this film because this is kind of what I was touching upon earlier, in that my parents I lived an incredibly sheltered childhood. I never in a million years would have been allowed to watch Jay and Silent Bob, but all my friends ever at school watched and quoted Jay and Silent Bob constantly. And these were also people who were like, Jericho like Star Wars, that's gay. Like, oh, what are
Yeah.
you watching, Jericho? Like Spider-Man? Oh, how gay. Oh, you like that? That's gay. You're gay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, years later, I watched Jay and Silent Bob, and I was like, hang on, wait. The people who fucking bullied me idolized Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
I was like, he spends this entire film jerking off about the same stuff that I liked. So the people who were like, God, Jericho, shut up about Phantom Menace. You're so gay. That's so gay. Would then pop in the VHS of Jay and Silent Bob and watch Kevin Smith prance around with a lightsaber, being like, this is being a grown up. This is where it's at. And so that's not his fault. But like the homophobia in Jay and Silent Bob,
It's not.
which like
It's rampant.
yeah, this is like a clear, like, it's not like any of these films are free from homophobia, but I think this is probably the worst one.
This is the worst in terms of everything. Like, to be honest, and in terms of outdatedness, I'd say this is by far. But yeah, in terms of gay jokes and homophobic jokes, they are rapid fire. The monkey, the orangutan, the dress up when they're in a gay couple is so fucking bad. Yeah, like it's rapid fire. You can't change that. You can't do anything now 20 years later. You can only take it as a product of its time. You can't. Again, this is what I'm saying when it's like, dude, where's my car? And, road trip, Freddy got fingered. Like, there's a lot of shock, lowbrow comedy. Kevin Smith goes for pop culture and homophobia, and that's what he separates himself with. But yeah, there's some things I like about this film, though. I love Good Will Hunting too. Open season, is it? I love that so much. It's so funny, and it's so well done, and it's so smart. It's such a good little parody of both, like, meta but not too meta. Like, you're making fun of Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, but if you just knew about Good Will Hunting, it's still a funny joke on its own. They're making a sequel to it, and it's going to be different. I love when they're replying to the hate mail on the internet, on the movies. Is it movies? Or whatever, the food counter. It might be movies. I love so much about this at times. I love some of the cameos and stuff. Harry Fisher's great as the nun, going by the book of the road. Yeah, there's so much good little things here. But there's also Mother's fucking Day as well, and the motherfucking time. So I have to give Kevin Smith a bit of credit for introducing me. He didn't fucking show off Ben Affleck to her. He showed off Mother's Day and the Jungle Love. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I was up until this point, 2-2. 2 yeses, 2 no. You're 50% success rate, Kevin. Here, I'm gonna step back. I'm gonna say void because I don't have a thumbs up or a thumbs down for this film. Very much a product of its time. There is nostalgia. There is jokes I genuinely like, but it is way out of date. And yeah, it also has a dog ending, doesn't it? There's, I remember that. Close the book on it then. We're done. We're never gonna.
So, I don't know if you knew this, but he wanted Tarantino to have a cameo as the director of Blunt Man and Chronic.
Yes.
For whatever reason.
The only reason I could think he couldn't have done it is because he was too busy filming The Waterboy. And that's the scheduling conflict that I'm going to go with the rest of my life. Not Waterboy, Little Nicky, sorry.
Little Nicky, yeah.
That's 2000, so...
Sandman's Dogma. He also... Going back to what you said about the big X-Files fan, David Duchovny was apparently desperate to play Cockknocker, but due to a scheduling conflict, dropped out, and that then went to Mark Hamill.
Who was doing nothing. Jesus.
Heather Graham had cropped up, I think, in Mallrats. Heather Graham
Yeah,
was clearly interested in him, so that was someone that he'd obviously had some kind of relationship with, discussing potential collaboration, as she was in talks to star in this film as the romantic lead. However, she couldn't understand why her character would fall in love with Jay,
I
which
mean, it is a big problem. Just to see it.
I think it's
Um,
a massive fucking problem when that's the entire thing that drives the film is that kind of romance. And
yeah,
you're like, oh yeah, this character is a fucking reprehensible piece
but
of shit with no redeeming values whatsoever.
but
So
it's also on Evan the writer here, because
yeah,
you could have made a female Jay. You
yeah,
could have there. I mean, that's the obvious joke, isn't it? There's a female equivalent of Jay and Silent Bob, and
yeah.
like
That requires imagination, and Kevin
yeah,
Smith can't write women,
because
so
because I think what weirdest compliment I can give this film is probably Jason Mewes' best, in terms of I don't hate him. I think he's fine
yeah.
leading.
Mm,
Like, considering I don't really like any of the other leads from Kevin Smith films other than Dogma, I think of his friends, this is the best friend lead performance he's ever gotten out of someone. And carries it, yeah, but yeah, the whole fucking romance is it's terrible. And I wish they leaned into making more of a joke of it,
yeah.
or done something funnier. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot, big chunks of this film are pretty shit.
Well, you mentioning Jason Mewes' performance, of course, he was infamously addicted to all manner of substances during this period of his
Yeah,
career. So he was apparently coked up on Dogma. This is supposedly the heroin movie, with Smith describing it as being a very unpleasant production and what forced him to have an intervention. And he said to Jason Mewes, "If you get clean, I'll write another film for you to appear in as Jay." This became Clerks 2, which is almost like a threat, I think. He said, if you don't fucking kick this habit, you're going to be starring in Clerks 2. No, Kevin,
no,
please, anything but that. No.
it's Kevin though. It's Kevin that wants to go back to the well. Look what you made me do. Go back to the well. Look at all
I'm
these
addicted to
ideas I
making
have.
Clerks films.
I was going to make
This film is
make
also
this great film. I was going to make a Superman film, but no, you were making me make Clerks 2 Jason Hughes.
yeah. This is also notable as being the first appearance of one Harley Quinn Smith.
Oh shit.
She has a cameo as Baby J, I think, actually. She's one of the infants.
The one there outside the store, isn't it? They're
Yeah.
problems and then mum go in. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, this is our crossover moment. This being the collision between one of my most hated directors, Kevin Smith, one of my most beloved directors, Saint Paul Thomas Anderson. Given that the ending which you spoke about with the critics, I actually wanted to give Kevin Smith credit for that, because the movie ends with Jay and Silent Bob just going around door to door and beating up their critics.
Which is
And like
great.
that's a kind of funny ooey bowl type
Yeah.
thing. And then because they're like, "Hey, are you Magnolia fan 420?" And then some kid's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, that's me." And then they just beat him to a pulp.
And you know
I
what?
was like,
I remember watching It's Always Sunny when they steal that joke with the
yeah,
bikes, and
yeah.
it made me go, holy shit! You took that joke from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Like, like that is such a
yeah.
funny fucking moment. If you just leaned into that way more. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
Paul Thomas.
Well, I thought that was good writing from Kevin Smith, because I was like, oh, for sure, like the type of person that would hate Jay and Silent Bob would be like a Paul Thomas Anderson fan.
Yeah,
It's like my name on Letterboxd is Magnolia fan. Like
yeah,
it's like I thought that was like him thinking of, oh, what type of person would hate me? I don't think it is, because I later discovered that it's just Kevin Smith hates Magnolia. And so is like, yeah, Kevin Smith hates Magnolia, which he called overlong and self-indulgent.
yeah.
And he apparently got attacked by the PTA hive when he posted his views of that. He has since backtracked, saying like, "Oh, I was just like a man child and I didn't understand it."
Yeah.
But the idea of Kevin Smith coming for Magnolia, which is like a masterpiece,
Yeah, but
it's
he's
like,
not gonna get it.
motherfucker, you're
I,
just saying,
I don't. I get it. Like, Kevin Smith in no world's gonna like Magnolia. Just like P.T. Anderson's not gonna sit down and love Mallrats.
He
Like, you
might.
know,
He might though, because he likes all kinds of weird. Like he said, Venom 2 was like a masterpiece. Like PTA, it might well. And this is where like he's been the little angel on my shoulder throughout this, where Paul Thomas Anderson has said like, you know what, like don't be a hater. Like no one's forcing you to like
yeah,
talk about the films you don't like. Like just be happy that they got
because
things made because it's so
that
hard
karma
for
comes back.
artists to.
Yeah, that karma comes back big time.
Yeah, exactly.
In our next film.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I guess we can just move on from the Magnolia thing.
Yeah,
The thing I think is that my explanation for this is that he infamously missed out on the best screenplay nomination,
yeah,
and I think that he saw Magnolia as the thing which got his spot. I think
yes,
just as I'm lashing out of jealousy towards Kevin Smith, I think he's lashing out at PTA because they kind of hold similar spots, don't they, in terms of
hmm
like that sort of period of American filmmaking. Like there was that infamous article where Kevin Smith is called the new Scorsese, and I think he just looked at Paul Thomas Anderson and was like, "Oh, that guy is what I should be."
yeah,
And probably the fact that like, oh, like he's gonna go off and become friends with like Tarantino and
yeah,
whatever. He's kind of I'm on the way out, and he's here. I am not having progressed and making the same tired fucking dick jokes that I was
hmm
like 7 years ago. Meanwhile, here's the auteur master making boogie nights and whatever. Anyway, and we then move on to 2004's Jersey Girl. So
or How to Kill a Career in 4 years.
yeah,
Yeah, Jersey Girl. Now here's the Gile confusion.
yeah,
Here's where everything starts getting muddled together with Chasing Amy, Jersey Girl, and Gile. So we got Ben
yeah,
Affleck back. We got our comedy. We got Miss JJ Lowe. I've seen Jersey Girl when I went through Kevin Smith back, probably in 2004, 2005. It probably would have been pretty recent. I don't remember a fucking thing about it. I'm trying to even remember other than J Lo and Ben Affleck is yes, fucking Damon might be there, Carlin might be there. I can't remember, so I don't have anything to say other
yeah.
than
Carlin's his dad.
yeah. At the time, I didn't like it. It didn't feel like a Kevin Smith at the time, which is a compliment now in hindsight. But at the
Yeah,
time, it felt generic as fuck. So I'm gonna. This is the first one I'm gonna be relying entirely on you.
this feels like him dabbling in selling out.
Yeah.
Because as we've mentioned later on, when he just becomes a studio gun for hire, and certainly when he starts just directing CW shows, I think this is him just trying to sand off his trademarks. And this is like admirable. It's good for him to try and be like, let's try and make something a little more mature than like
Yeah.
Men Children, speaking about like, have you ever noticed that lightsaber is phallic? Anyway, applaud him for the maturity of trying to do something different. This is like a thought experiment, I think, where he's like, "Oh, what if my wife died and I was left raising my child?" That is basically the plot of Jersey Girl. In that J Lo dies and then Ben Affleck is a single father, and Kevin Smith is like, "Yeah, I too am basically a single father with the infant Harley Quinn Smith," and it's incredibly disturbing because obviously with Kevin Smith naming his daughter after a cartoon character which he wants to fuck, like I don't know, a slightly uncomfortable father-daughter
Mm.
relationship. And after Ben Affleck's wife J Lo dies in this, he cradles his daughter and whispers to her, "You're the next best thing to mommy."
Gross. That's vile.
Yeah. And so, interestingly, apparently after Gigli, J-Lo was cut out of the marketing of this film because they didn't want to
Oh, okay.
associate it with, like, from the
Yeah.
couple.
The couple that brought you Gile. What's better though, Gile or Jersey?
Jersey Girl.
Good.
Yeah, so I have some little pieces of trivia which we can run through.
Run the
I
through.
can't quite remember how it ends up, but there is a scene where Ben Affleck explains sex to his daughter, and IMDb trivia says that Kevin Smith wanted to include clips from Jaws while he explains the birds and the bees, but Spielberg said no. And I'm like, I feel like we don't get that much
Yeah.
directors being like, "Oh, here's me getting knocked back by like people who denied me things. But Kevin Smith, I guess, being so open as he is,
Yeah.
just like no filter. So it's quite interesting just to hear him speak about like, oh, here's all the things I was denied, or here's the people who like knocked me back for my film. Here's the person who said no. Why the fuck would I ever want to act in this piece of shit? And so the idea of Spielberg being like him pitching like, so Ben Affleck, who wants to fuck his daughter, perhaps, is explaining The Birds and the Bees to her, and Jaws is playing in the background, and Spielberg just kind of listening there, completely blank before saying, "Yeah, no, I'm not gonna,
No.
I'm not gonna let you do that."
There's red, isn't it? Left on
Yeah.
screen.
The DVD release was promoted with a commercial in which Kevin Smith begs people to buy the DVD so he has enough money to keep his sexy wife happy.
Jesus.
The cinematographer for this film was Vilmos Zsigmond, which kind of explains why this looks better than most of his other ones. This kind of passes as a generic comedy. And Vilmos said that Kevin wanted to shoot everything in close up, and Smith has credited him with expanding his view of what cinema could be, saying that the film looks better than it has any right to. I'm like, motherfucker, you've been working for a decade now. You should have more idea. But this was a View Askew production, which is interesting because it doesn't seem like one.
Well, I thought it wasn't. I thought that this was the first non one.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I thought that too. But no, apparently, and I think there were talks about Jay and Silent Bob having a cameo before a warrant was put out for Jay's arrest for parole violation. They nixed that. And we get another speech in this film. Will Smith is honoured with being the cameo who turns up for 5 minutes to deliver a monologue summarising the themes of the film and inspiring the protagonist to take action. And so that kind of concludes Jersey Girl, which isn't one of his more heinous films. And in fact, it kind of annoys me that Kevin Smith, whenever he's shitting on his career, he's like, hey, I'm the guy who made Jersey Girl. Yeah. What do I know? And I'm like, the gap between Jersey Girl and whatever you think your best film is not as big as you think it is.
Yes.
Like, Jersey Girl is better than you think, but
yes.
all of your other films are worse. Yeah. And so, moving on to Clerks 2.
2006, Clerks 2. So I'll go first. I like Clerks 2. I'm always going to defend Clerks 2. There's a lot of shit in it. There's a lot of retreading. It is fucking crazy to go back to the well so early. Like, you know, what's that, 5 years between Killing It Off and Resurrect, and that's ridiculous. One movie in between. Fucking joke.
Well, listen, Jay got off heroin.
Yeah, well,
this is his reward.
You shouldn't make films as a reward for your friend getting clean. But all that aside, I do like Clerks 2. I like. There's a lot of problems. It feels like a mainstream movie. It doesn't. Yeah. It is shot like a mainstream movie. It is acted, and the jokes are written out like a mainstream movie. But in a lot of that way, like, I like it because it's a contrast, unintended, to the first film. It doesn't feel like a retread. I mean, they do retread jokes, of course they do. They rehash, but it's not constant. It's not
certainly in comparison to 3.
Oh yeah, but compared to
3, like, there's a couple callbacks, but
there's
it does have its own merits.
Callbacks are fine, like
exactly.
But it's not like Veronica's not here. You know, it's not like here's the egg guy. They're not literally going back and back and back. And for the most part, I like a lot of it. I God bless Rosario Dawson for doing this. Yeah. Basically, that's crazy that you'd want to do this. But there's some really good stuff here. There's some really funny jokes. There's some real bad stuff. Like, it's worse than Clerks 1, but it's such a nice, fresh sequel that that's all I need. It's something that's different, but you're still, you're still the same but different by not putting it in a fucking grocery quick stop or whatever, by at least changing the scenery, by brightening it up, by introducing new characters. Like, that's enough. Like, Kevin, I don't expect that from you.
Yeah.
It's not great. Ending's really good.
Yeah.
Some of the, again, biggest problem is probably Dante. He's just not very likable. He's not a very good actor. Nice guy, but like it sucks. Like, you could have had some stronger character. But
Could have
I
had Mark
really like.
Wahlberg.
You could have had Mark Wahlberg. You could have had one. I think like even Jason Lee or something more likable and would have been a better, more likable and is a better, at least can deliver lines with some sort of. So if I've got to pull someone from the Smith verse, I'd probably pull him. But yeah, no, I really like Clerks too. Elias is fine, the new
Yeah.
guy who he's not great. He's often the scapegoat for Clerks too, but like I don't mind it. It's something different. Like the things that are different in Clerks 2 is what makes it like makes me like about it. I was actually thinking, especially after watching the third one, Clerks 2 is probably the one I would recommend like a newcomer. It's like the most accessible. It's like
Are you remembering the number of racial slurs in Clerks too?
yeah, but like there's a great joke about that. Like that's my favorite joke in it is the porch monkey scene because it's aware but it's not meta and
Yeah.
it's literally playing on like offensive terms and it's awareness. Like I mean yeah, it's still like the humor is outdated because again Kevin Smith's humor is outdated, but like culturally it is not outdated like the first film. Even the pop culture references are more digestible in this one than they are in the first film. So if you were just literally I want to watch a Clerks film or a Kevin Smith comedy, I would probably recommend the second film over 1 and 3.
Three, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
One is more of like a rough.
2, 1,
like
3.
Not everyone.
2, 1, 3. I'd say watch the second one. If you love the second one, see the first one. If you still love it, then go to the third one. Like, but yeah, there's stuff that hate on it. Obviously, your beloved Silence of the Lambs scene. So yeah, I know your opinions are a little bit different. So you take it away. What's your thought?
I don't really care for this film. I agree with you. The jail ending is poignant. It's a very bumpy ride, but he somewhat sticks the landing, which is kind of the thing. Is like he's not without redeeming qualities. Like when he does go for like the sentimental heartstring pulls, he does manage to do it half the time. So like it does have some emotional weight, which I have to give him credit for. I just it's not fun. I don't like his characters. I like it. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Once again, the Silence of the Lambs gag. I think basically, the issue isn't necessarily doing a Silence of the Lambs reference in 2006. Is that he's not subverting the gag. Like there's nothing to it.
Yeah.
It is just he remembered Silence of the Lambs when they did this.
Yes.
If they were like, it's the fact that the film grinds to a halt. If he was playing with your expectations or doing something, and because obviously listeners to the podcast will be aware that my sense of humor amounts exclusively to, hey, what if this was like The Simpsons?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, remember John Peters? Ha 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 ha. So again, maybe seeing too much of myself reflected in Kevin Smith, but just like that gag is just carried by how good a filmmaker Jonathan Demme is.
Yes.
It's nothing to do with Kevin Smith.
And
but
I agree with you because it's like one thing I don't like about Clerks 2 is probably Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah,
they are shoehorned in like they've got to be, and like
because of a contract with Jason Mewes.
Yeah. and you could use them. They should have appeared at the end, right? They should have when Dante and Randall buy back the quick stop, right?
Yeah,
they should have still been outside waiting.
Yeah,
like
the
fucking
JSX Morissette.
Just being we've been waiting. Like, yo, I thought you were open at 8 or
Morissette
something.
X Machina.
Yeah, we thought you opened at 8. Like, it's 12 years. What's happening? Like, something like that would have been a funny joke, a one-liner. Everyone rounds up. Everyone's happy. You still get to include them, but the fact they are shoehorned in here is probably again the stuff that is Clerks 1 is the worst part. The stuff that is at least taking the two main characters and setting them in a new place and seeing them adapt is the best part.
Oh, I do have a little something for you, which is that like the gender politics of this film, because the first Clerks is driven by like infidelity and promiscuity, and like, oh, like my girlfriend cheated on me and my ex is fucking a Chinaman and whatever. Whereas in this, it's just such double standards, given that Dante, like, he cheats on his girlfriend with Rosario Dawson,
his fiance.
Yeah, his fiance, exactly. Yeah, it's his fiance, but it's like, oh, it's okay though because she's a bitch.
Yes.
Like it's fine. Women cheating is abhorrent, and in fact, women sleeping with men before you is technically kind of
Which
cheating. But when men do it, it's fine and
which is
justified.
okay. That's my final thing I have to say about Clerks D. You're right, and it's weird because he's cheating. The Kevin Smith surrogate cheats on his fiance, who's played by Kevin Smith, and
Uh huh.
she is fucking dreadful. She's so fucking obnoxiously just awful.
Yeah.
She's not in it enough, but when she is in it, like, and I know that's meant to be like, oh, look how terrible my fiance is. Go to the nice girl that's treating you nice, and it's
Yeah.
fun. But like, that's your wife as well, and like, come
Yeah.
on, like,
We're in Guy Ritchie casting Madonna
we
and Swept
really
Away
are.
territory of like, really, this is.
And
And
like,
it's not because it's not like a fun like oh ha 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 over the top
no, 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 no.
like you could kind of
It's
yeah.
Kevin Smith taking tips from John Derek, and I don't like it. Yeah, so that's my love. She is fucking dread, and she's not good in Clerks 3 as well. So I can put that little bit here as well.
They had some difficulty casting the Rosario Dawson part. Apparently, Sarah Silverman was in talks to play it, which I feel like he would have been
It makes a lot of
supportive
sense.
of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2006 Sarah Silverman would have fitted in perfectly in this film.
yeah. Liv Tyler again from Jersey Girl. She was considered, but she was uncomfortable with the dialogue. And IMDb trivia says, had Rosario Dawson turned down the part, Smith's wife would have played it.
Oh my
Which
god.
that would have just tanked this film
Yeah.
because she stinks out every scene she's in a very
And
small role.
in
So
that
if you
in
made her
that
the heart of the
in
film,
that fucking point, get the girls from Clerks 1. If you're in that
yeah,
deeper shit, get the dude from Clerks 1.
yeah,
Back to the well.
yeah. Okay, so from here, we then take a massive leap forward to 2008 with Zack and Miri make a porno.
Yeah, so I'll do this one first as well. I like Zack Miri. I don't love it. I really
Yeah.
need a big asterisk there. So yeah, it's Kevin Smith does Judd Apatow.
Yeah.
There's your review. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's Kevin Smith. It's still a Kevin Smith film. Like it really is.
Yeah.
But it's more. It's that smooth progression, mainstream. Like Clerks 2 has still got the stink of the 90s. I need something that is straight for the 40-year-old virgin fans, the Superbad fans. Yeah. This is my new audience. I'm updating and aiming somewhere else. And yeah, it's actually all right. Like there's some funny stuff in it. There's some terrible stuff in it too. It's real middle of the road, but
yeah.
It's still got some good highlights. It's got my favorite Jason Mewes performance because he's not playing Jay, and I like to see him not play Jay. I think that's something different at the very least. Yeah, Seth Rogen isn't great. It's very just like clone of Judd Apatow, but I don't dislike it. It's somewhere in the middle for me, but it just gets a pass because I still remember some jokes. There's still bits that made me laugh, and it isn't obnoxiously Kevin Smith. So it's a compliment and an insult to say it's a clone, and it doesn't feel like his stuff. But yeah, I really don't mind it. It gets a pass for me. What about you?
Very similar. I agree. This is like an interesting cocoon phase as you kind of shape shifting into like, oh, let's try and just direct things without my dirty little fingerprints all over them. Where it's like it's something of a generic like 2000s raunch fest, but it's still like identifiably Kevin Smith in that it has his friends and his nerd references.
So that's it, because it isn't that raunchy. It isn't American Pie. I mean, it is raunchy. It's about making a porno.
Yeah,
but
are you forgetting someone gets projectile shit on it?
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do. Yeah, it does.
I'm
but
sure it's the studio probably being like, we need to make a red band version of this.
Yes,
we need to.
But it's still 2008 and not 2001. Yeah. If this was done by like the road American Pie, this would have been.
Yeah, no, I think this is clearly a post-American Pie.
This
like,
is the post
sex drive. Like
that's why I say the 40-year-old virgins. That one for me. That's the change from teenage to men.
Yeah. our Clerks era, obviously me and Kyle worked in Asda in the DVD department. I remember there one night where there was a guy he had Sex Drive in one hand and Zack and Miri Make a Porno in the other, and he was kind of like weighing them up, like, which one of these is gonna have more? So that's kind of what I mean by this, is it's like the dying of the light of like, okay, the landscape is gonna change, the internet is gonna make pornography more accessible, and the Hangover is gonna kind of shake things up a little bit. But like, yeah, it's a kind of dying of the light for the Raunch Fest combos.
It is. The only thing I have about this film as well, unless you have more notes, is it is one of the last early ideas of Kevin Smith. I think after Chasing Amy. It was maybe a Chasing Amy sequel, I think, is what I read.
Oh, really?
Or a follow-up to it. He's I don't know how they were going to do it, but he wanted to do it in after Chasing Amy, and then that's again why I'm always giving Scott the credit for Dogma, because he wanted to do. Let's do the other thing. Let's finish one of Let's finish one of the fucking projects we've started, and let's do Dogma. So like it just floated about in bits of ideas, and to be honest, it probably makes more sense conceptually in the 90s, like homemade porno,
for sure.
like video circuits. The internet changes things and redundance the film, really.
That was my note, was why is it taking Smith this long to unite his twin loves of pornography and nerd shit?
Yeah.
Like, it seems like something he should have stumbled upon way earlier.
Yeah.
Particularly when he's doing the weird cuckold Playboy shoot with his wife as Superman, and his wife as Lois Lane, and the hunk as Superman, and him behind the lens. Like, you'd think that part of Smith's lizard brain would be like ding 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 ding.
Well,
ding.
Speaking of lizard brain, I'll read. I found it. I've got it here. I'll read out. The genesis of Zack and Miri has been in Kevin Smith's mind since the 1990s. Two porn-centered projects were in development. One was a film called Name, and it was intended to be the follow-up, not a sequel to Chasing Amy. The project was not made and was replaced with Dogma. The second attempt was in 1997 as a failed 22-episode series called Hiatus, which would have again starred Lee. But he pitched the series to TV networks. They were all rejected, believed that the kind of material could never happen on TV. However, he kept the idea in mind and wrote a script following Clerks 2 that would be porn-bound. So it's been in his lizard brain for 20 years. He wanted to do this. He didn't know how, and he knew you can do it in 2018. Yeah, this was also famously the film where Kevin Smith started smoking weed because of Seth Rogen. So this is
which is so embarrassing.
Which is so fucking embarrassing
when you're like mid-30-year-old, like pushing 40s man gets introduced.
You're
to
silent
by
Bob.
Seth Rogen. Yeah, exactly.
It's like introducing Cheech and Chong. You're like, come on, guys.
You're telling me I can smoke this shit? Kevin Smith, like it's Kevin Smith's "It Comes in Pints" moment.
So this is a split in the multiverse for me. There's the world where Kevin Smith says no to drugs and takes a different career path. This is the divergence for me. This is the fork in the road. So this is the last of the golden or the pure innocent age of Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's passed for me. It does get passed.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that there's a kind of meta angle to Zack and Miri where it's a bunch of friends making a movie in their workplace.
Oh yeah.
Like it's the story. It's like transparently the story of Clerks. At first, I was like annoyed that he kind of is incapable of generating stories without plagiarizing elements of his own life, but it's actually kind of endearing that he told it as a story of a bunch of fucking idiots creating a piece of shit with no redeeming merits whatsoever.
Well, that's it. And he'll do that again with Clerks 3.
Final note for you. So Jay flicks his tie over his back in one scene when he's naked. This is apparently to conceal the fact that he has Harley Quinn Smith's name tattooed on him. Which...
weird.
I don't know. Far be it for me to judge, but seems...
I'm not getting into their relationship, that's zero. I'm only basing it on screen, and you cover it up on screen.
And we do not see that tattoo.
I don't ask, I don't tell, you know?
Okay, so that brings us up to 2010 with the return of Bruno. It is, of course, Cop Out.
It's Cop Out. So now we're into Razzie Town. This is where I call the Razzie Town okay, now. This is where he's now eligible.
100%.
100% he's eligible for Razzies now, and Cop Out should have been the first. In some way or another. Probably worst director, I seen Cop Out in 2010. I have not seen it since.
Yeah.
I fucking hated it. I hate it because it was Kevin Smith and it wasn't a generic film. I only watched it for
this is the
that
first
fucker.
screenplay he didn't write,
He
so
didn't write it. It's first one post Die Hard 4.
yeah.
Yes. So now we're into Hollywood Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Sellout Kevin Smith. So yeah, I think I don't have much to say about this film other than it's generic, it's unfunny, and there's only bits and pieces that can stand out. It doesn't feel like a Kevin Smith film, and now that's that's a bad thing. Now I want a Kevin Smith film. Come back, like go be weird again. This is so by the books. The best part of this film is the stories behind the scenes.
100%.
Hearing Kevin Smith talk about his working with Bruno is by far the most interesting thing about this film. I would recommend watching Smodcast or whatever the fuck it's called about this rather than watch Cop Out, because I mean Bruno is poor in it. Bruno's poor in 2010 as it is, but you fuck up Tracy Morgan as well. Like, man's easiest thing to make someone laugh, and there's a failure all around. I don't have nothing nice to say about Cop Out other than maybe 2 jokes. What about you?
I don't hate Cop Out as much as other people. I think because I'm not a Kevin Smith fan, the fact that he's watered down kind of makes this a little more palatable to me. In fact, the fact that it opens with like an interrogation scene and Tracy Morgan like fucking things up because he's like doing movie quotes and things.
Mhm.
I'm like, the idea of the movie starting with a moron failing at his job because he's unable to stop babbling out pop cultural references actually made me think that Kevin Smith had reached self-awareness. But yeah, it's like, it's not great. It's like, this is just a territory we're in where these are kind of like bad generic films that are kind of phoned in, where I'm like, he has nowhere near the visual sensibility of, say, a Rennie Harlan. So like he it's just like, here's a man who can't do action, trying to do action and failing, and also he's not really doing the dialogue stuff that people know and like him for. But I have some incredible highlights for you here. On one occasion, Bruno said to Kevin Smith, "I'm Bruce Willis. I've been Bruce Willis successfully for 25 years. How long have you been Silent Bob, motherfucker?" Bruno also accused Smith of spending most of his time smoking marijuana and not interacting with the actors. What? This does not sound like the man we know. Bruno also lectured Kevin Smith and his crew on their choice of camera lenses, lashing out at Smith for not knowing the proper specifications for the camera's lens size, which is amazing. Like, if Kevin Smith probably hasn't touched the camera since Clerks.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Yeah. Props to you, Bruno. And Smith did kind of hit back at Bruno. He said he's kind of dragged him for being unable to improvise with Tracy Morgan. He seemed shell-shocked by how fast Tracy could make up dialogue and be funny. Tracy was so fun, and Bruce was like, what is he talking about? He started trying to ad-lib, and he'd look out the window and be like, is that Connie Chung out there? I think that's Maury Povich. He's naming these names, and you're like, does he have an old TV guide under the table? Why is he bringing these names up? Which I think is a little bit of projection from old Mr. Smith. Because if Bruno was like, is that Han Solo out there? I think that's Dr. McCoy. Smith would be lapping that up. And again, it kind of just screams his failure as a director. Because I'm like, if you were good at working with actors, you'd be able to get something out of that. Of them, like, you would use the fact that could be a funny bit if Bruce Willis is just constantly pulling out these weird names. So yeah, we'll give the final word to the man himself, who responded to the critical take on Cop Out, saying, "Writing a nasty review for Cop Out is akin to bullying a retarded kid. All you've done is make fun of something that wasn't doing you any harm and wanted only to give some cats some fun laughs."
Oh, shut up. Fuck off. I do want to say as well, this is, again, I'm saying this is the breaking point because of him now smoking weed. Cop Out is now the first without Mosier. Kevin Smith's flying solo now. His crew, the last of his Jersey boys are gone. This is why it doesn't feel like Kevin Smith anymore as well. He says hi. He's not interacting.
He doesn't have Jason Mewes to protect him from Bruno. He's just out on alone in the big bad world. Which, yeah, goes back to what you said about the clerk's family and him being like the head of his collaborators as opposed to like a visionary on his own. He seems like kind of out of his depth here. But we then move on to Red State in 2011.
Yeah, quick rapid follow up.
Yep.
So wow, I really like Red State.
Yeah, same.
It's if it wasn't for Dogma, it might be my favorite.
Yeah.
It's definitely my favorite non-Kevin Smith feeling film. I took me a while to see it. I didn't see it initially. I probably see it a couple of years after, just because of Cop Out. Obviously, I've burned my fingers, and yeah, I mean, it didn't sound appealing. It had such a strange little non-release. You know, it was very much flew under the radar, never really got spoken about. But yeah, I really like it. I mean, it's going into it goes into themes that I like. You know,
it's a very Kyle.
It's a very Kyle film. It's the relation from Dogma. When last week I was talking about Exorcist 3, it all leads to this. I would make Red State. I 100% would make Red State. I love it. I love the cast. Goodman. Yeah. So fucking. The first one with what's his name?
Michael Parks.
Michael Parks. The Tarantino boy is what I was going to say. Who we'll see again in Tusk, and he's fantastic. Like not having anybody really that off the top of my head from the Afflecks and the fucking Andersons and all these people that hang on. There's no Muse. There's nobody. This is a proper fucking little film. This is a proper independent horror film that is good. That has care and attention, and I don't know how Kevin Smith made this film. I don't, because he did write it as well.
If you didn't watch the credits, you would have no idea this was a Kevin Smith film, idea. And I mean that as the highest possible compliment.
100%. Yeah, like I recommend it. If you ever want a little good horror film it's nothing new, but it's done well, Red State, 100%. The only thing I have on my little note for it, and it's what we brought up earlier, it's one of the few that the Weinsteins didn't produce. They passed on it because they didn't think it'd make money. So that's a nice little bonus.
They were like, this would be better if Jay and Silent Bob were in
And in the commercial episode of Comic Book Men, Smith cited Brian Johnson's Vulgar as being the inspiration for Red State.
Oh my god!
So it's a full circle moment. The film I produced and cameoed in inspired my own movie.
Wow!
But yeah, like it's nothing like Vulgar. It's a billion times better. This is how you do it right. Yeah. Honestly, again, like I recommend it. This is a good film.
Same. Yeah, I think it's probably his best film, and Michael Parks probably gives the best performance in any Kevin Smith movie. Tarantino singled it out as one of his favorite films of 2011. So yeah, like a decade on from Chasing Amy, Tarantino's still in the Smith corner. So good to know he's loyal. And we then move on to 2014 with Tusk.
So we're not counting Jay and Silent Bob movie animated, are we? We're skipping past that.
Right,
that's right.
We can cover that in other stuff.
Other stuff, right? Okay, we've got another. Right, so Tusk. Tusk is great.
Yeah.
Tusk is weird.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the trailer for it at first and just being gobsmacked and being like, how is this in the cine world? What is going on here? I have to see it. I like Tusk.
Yeah.
I like Justin Long when he's with Kevin Smith. It's something I didn't. He's great in Zack and Miri. He's got like a little cameo as a gay porn star, and it's so funny. I can't remember who he's with. There's another handsome Hollywood actor from 2008.
It's not Brandon Routh, is it?
It might be Brandon. I'm not convinced. Anyway, but Justin Long. I love Justin Long with Kevin Smith. I think he's fun with him. Justin Long's great and fantastic. That's so simple. So I mean, it's a podcast idea. It's what we do on how to fix a film, and then you go out and make it. Yeah, like basically horror Kevin Smith is something at this point I'm all up for. This is like 2 in a row where I think, I mean, I much prefer Red State to Tusk as a movie, but Tusk as an idea is so fucking good. And there's something in it that's just so unique. So a little special film that just sits in there. It's if we're going on the album analogy, this is like 13 albums in, and I'm going to make a strange fucking reggae,
this is his Lulu.
Dubstep. Yeah, I'm gonna go. This is my Lulu. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna go do whatever the fuck I want, and no one can give a shit about it. So mad respect for doing Tusk and staying away from the well. It's
Yeah.
like good on you at this point. Like I'm all for this independent, low budget horror. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in complete agreement. This is his best film that is a Kevin Smith film. Because Red State you can watch and it's like, well, anyone, not as an insult, but anyone could have made Red State. Whereas Tusk is clearly from the mind of Kevin Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one else could make Tusk, and it's his best Kevin Smith film. I kind of avoided it for a while because I am too squeamish and body horror stuff like that kind of creeps me out. But I watched it, and I watched it as part of the marathoning all his films, and I enjoyed it. I agree with what you said about Justin Long. Justin Long's like the MVP of like Justin Long. I think just works really well with Smith's dialogue in that like he is able to make it sound better than it appears on the page, and certainly than it does when it's being recited by any of the amateurs he usually works with.
100%.
So yeah, this is great. Not really much to say about it. Trivia: Quentin Tarantino was offered the role of Guy Lapointe, but turned it down, saying he dug the script and couldn't wait to watch Michael Parks let loose his internal kraken.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith said in an interview that Tarantino thought he was being offered the role of Wallace, not Guy Lapointe, and that's why he turned it down, which led to Johnny Depp being cast. Which, if that were true, I don't know why you wouldn't just explain the misunderstanding. This is like, under no circumstances were you getting Tarantino.
But I also do understand how pain in the arse it would be to communicate through agents and the Chinese whispers of I want to offer a part, and then by the time it gets to Tarantino,
do you think they don't have each other's like mobile phone numbers?
No. Okay. Tarantino's too weird to be sitting like WhatsApping Kevin Smith. Like no way.
I think him, Fiona Apple, and Paul Thomas Anderson are just watching a movie in their own cinema, high on coke, being like, "Hey, text Kevin again." Tell him that you'll play the part if you get to say the N word.
Hey, Kevin, I think you're cool. That was me, Paul Thomas.
So yeah, of course, were it not for Tarantino, we wouldn't have got famed abuser Johnny Depp, alleged abuser. No, sorry, innocent of abuse. Please don't sue our podcast. So apparently, he made these movies just to spend more time with his daughter because his daughter was friends with Harley Quinn, and of course, Lily Rose Depp and Harley Quinn Smith have small roles in Tusk, which is a smooth segue into our next film, 2016's Yoga Hosers. So from the high point in Smith's career to what I would say is the low point. You have not seen Yoga Hosers?
I refuse to see Yoga Hosers. Yeah. So this is, if you're putting your fucking kids in it and your wife and yourself, I assume, I don't want to watch it. I know it's a sequel, spin-off to Tusk.
Yeah. So they're his daughter and Johnny Depp's daughter are clerks in Tusk, and then their character kind of focuses in more on that.
Yes. So universe. It's in universe and a universe of a universe.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna watch it. I have no fucking interest. I think I've seen the trailer, and no, not a chance in hell.
Yeah.
All that goodwill you've just built up over 5 years out the window. But you've seen it, so talk us through Yoga Hosers.
So I'm going to be brutal. This might be like, we'll maybe recontextualize this as Saving Christmas again with our interview with Darren Dode when he's like, hey, I was just making a family movie. As a piece of cinema, Yoga Hosers is horrendous. If it's just him, a man hanging out with his wife and kids, maybe we can make excuses for it that way, but under no circumstances should anyone else watch this because it's so fucking embarrassing. We get a Belieber reference and a teenage girl talking about her blog in 2016, which Kevin Smith just can't write women, and he certainly cannot write teenage girls. The film opens with Smith and Lily Rose Depp singing a kind of like rock pop punk cover of Oh Canada. And not only can Harley Quinn not act, she also cannot sing. So I am not sure why this movie is intent on making her do both. It almost seems like Kevin Smith's trying to humiliate his daughter on the widest possible scale. Stylistically, the film has like a ton of like Instagram bleeps and blops and like video game kind of glitches, which I don't know, like, is that him just being like, oh, teenage girls, they're always on Instagram?
Hmm.
But like, he's normally quite clear about his stylistic inspirations. I couldn't trace this one. I was like, did he just watch Scott Pilgrim or something? Like, what's the
Yeah.
deal? But we haven't really spoken about like we've spoken about pornography, nerd shit, other key parts of the Smith mosaic, hockey and Canada.
Hmm.
On the basis of this film, you would almost think he has never been to Canada, in that he's just endlessly amused by like, oh ha ha ha, a boot, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, there's snow, ha ha ha. I'm like, he has fucking lived in Canada for longer than I have at this point in his life. Why is he still just serving up such like, oh, yeah, you gonna watch Star Wars, eh? It's just like he's cinema's Peter Pan, where he just
Hmm.
never grows and progresses at all. And on that note, the villains of Yoga Hosers are little sausage Nazis, Bratsies. And so with the Nazi party joke of Tusk and the Bratsies in this, can only conclude that Kevin Smith, edgelord, has discovered Nazi jokes at the age of 45. But yeah, Yoga Hosers is fucking horrendous.
There.
Really don't have anything to say. It's like, it's awful. And we can look forward to him concluding the Canadian trilogy with Moose Jaws.
Yeah.
I think he said that these are View Askew movies because there's speculation about like Jay or Silent. He said he might kill off Jay and Silent Bob in Moose Jaws or something. But anyway, we can but hope. And so we then shoot off to 2019 with Jay and Silent Bob's reboot.
And once again, this is me out. I did Clerks 3 for the podcast, but no, I'm out at this point. There's no way I'm watching the reboot. It's just like everything nice I was saying about the first one, right? Everything I was like, you know what, like nostalgia, time, there's a few jokes. It would just take it away. It would just strip any love I would have for any thought, enjoyment. I really just don't want to see it. It might be good. Fuck knows. It might be amazing. I could be
It's
wrong.
not. Kyle, don't say that.
But
It's not.
I also assumed, right? Like, so the first film full of, pop culture references, stuff like that. But this was just going to be callbacks. I assumed this was
Yeah.
just going to be a big masturbatorium full of look how good my old movies were. Here's Jason Lee. Here comes Chris Rock.
It's the
Here
victory
comes
tour.
yeah.
Like,
That's
it's the victory lap.
I'm not watching Kevin Smith fucking masturbate for an hour and a half about himself. Yeah, not doing it. So talk me through it.
Yeah, so it's just the victory lap. It's like we said, nerds have won, and it's now like, hey, look, my little friends are like the biggest people in Hollywood. So he gets Affleck and Damon back. He like gets Melissa. I've never said her name out loud before. Melissa Supergirl is in it. He just pulls out the Rolodex of
Yeah.
like all of his biggest friends and get them to come in it. Because it's just kind of it's the victory lap of acknowledging like, hey, look, whether I shaped it or not, no one can deny that Hollywood is now Kevin Smith shaped. All of
Yes.
my interests are the biggest things in the world, and it fucking sucks. Like he's just reheating the same stuff. So obviously they do the Goodbye Horses bit again
Mhm.
because that's a beloved gag. That's a callback, just doing the thing. It starts on that. It's kind of interesting just to see how old they are. Like this is like a guy who has had like a heart attack by this point.
Yeah.
Jason Mewes got off heroin by this point in time. So it's just interesting to see how much older they are. Like
Mhm.
frozen in time, just running around doing the same hijinks that they were 20 years ago. It's basically the Irishman, but for stoners. He gets up on his high horse about veganism because obviously post heart attack he becomes a vegan, and this is another instance of me seeing myself reflected in Kevin Smith where I'm like, Kevin, stop embarrassing me by like I speak about Canada and veganism all the time, Kevin. You can't do it. And it's just really fucking cringe because by this point he's got his Mubi pop-up store, restaurant, whatever, and like Mubi sells like some vegan products, but they also sell like a bunch of like regular chocolate and just meat. And I'm like, if you are like the CEO of McDonald's, that kind of like counteracts you being vegan. Like, there's no way in hell that you can consume as many burgers as you will be selling. So, like, you
Mm.
kind of lose the ability to lecture others on veganism if you own a meat chain. But anyway, Ben Affleck gets brought into this to give the Kevin Smith speech wherein a character delivers a monologue which summarizes all the themes of the picture and inspires the protagonist to take action.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really, really awkward scene where Kevin Smith's daughter does an inventory of her sex toy collection and speaks at length about fucking Chris Hemsworth.
Okay.
Which I'm like, it's lovely dialogue for your father to write for you,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. Is Chris Hemsworth in the movie?
Oh, he might be.
Yeah.
You're the closest thing to mommy. So we then jet off to 2022 with the release of Clerks 3.
So yeah, I watched Clerks 3 for this podcast.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want to see it. I can't even remember all the reasons. I think the trailer didn't help. I think the time of how long it had been made, modern day Kevin Smith. There's a lot of reasons I didn't want a Clerks 3. I always wanted a Clerks 3. I mean, I know he spoke before, but how, you know, he can make a really depressing one, really sad one. And
Yeah.
like I said, I've heard bits and pieces of other things. Anyway, I watched it literally 2 days ago for this, and I had a great time. It is exactly what it needs to be. It's very sentimental. It's very much for the fans of the first two, and it is a conclusion. But saying that, like despite all that, I did enjoy it. I didn't love it.
Yeah.
It is my least favorite of the three, but goddamn, you're very much right. He can stick a landing. He knows how to hit those sentimental beats. And he got me. He did get me. He got me a couple of times where I was like, "Oh fuck!" Like, shit. These are the people from Clerk 2. Why am I like? Why do I give a shit? So saying all that though is, and there's some weird stuff in here. There's some weird choices that Rosario Dawson, very strange being used. Let's say I'm not going to spoil too much. I guess it's very recent, and I don't want to go too much compared to maybe the other ones, which are 20 years old. But who gives a fuck? Like, no, the Rosario Dawson stuff is weird, and the ending did throw me a little bit. But I overall I really enjoyed it. I think it was very fitting. It's weird seeing them all. It's kind of what you're talking about, probably with the reboot. Probably how I felt here. Randall, obviously, you know, he's 50 odd now. All our Dante's 50 odd. So some of it, it creeps in ages, but it also makes it work because it's, you know, in the film, it's set. It works in the film. That's the point of it. It is a bit too meta at times for my liking. Too many callbacks compared to what made me love to. Like, too many. I don't mind a callback, but like,
it's Weed. Weed's broken his brain.
Yeah,
Carl.
it really
like
has.
He lacks the ability to come up with any fresh ideas at this point in time.
Very much so. But then you know what? I still had a few laughs. It definitely goes on the sentimental heartstrings side of things. It's a lot more Clerks 2 end than Clerks 2 beginning. But I really did enjoy it. I was surprised. I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I like the very ending as well. The voiceover, the Kevin Smith cameo, telling you what happened to Randall. I thought that was great because that's the meta-ness I want. You're going to be doing this forever. You're going to be 90-year-old in Jersey cranking out crap, and you do what you want. You do I like it as a Kevin Smith biography tale, but as a Clerks film, not so much. I have Clerks 1 for that. I have Zack and Miri for that. I know you've done this. I know your story so much. And I know you've had a heart attack. I know you've lost weight. I know all this. You don't need to tell me this again. It's what I'm saying. The biggest, and what is it, 30 years in, it's showing that he's not a writer. He isn't a writer. He never was a writer.
Well, he's not a director either.
He's not a director. He's not really an actor. He's just like, he's not even an idea
He's a
guy.
podcaster.
He is a podcaster. He's a clerk. You know, it was nice seeing Mosier. I will say that. I know it. I didn't see him produce. I didn't see his credits popping up. I don't know how much involvement he has. I didn't think he was back with Kevin, but obviously he has his cameo reprising from the first films, and that's nice. It's nice. It's a nice way to tie it all together and be done with it. and you're not going to get a better Clerks 3 ever. I don't think I could do a better Clerks 3. It would piss off everyone.
You could do Twilight of the Clerks. You
I,
could do
Passion
between
of the
us. We can
Clerks,
do our
yeah.
Irishman, the Clerks. We can
Absolutely.
do.
I could do a great movie for us. I don't think because this is the thing. Like Clerks 2 is a mainstream movie for people who haven't seen Clerks.
Yeah.
This
the
is,
fans aren't going to get a better Clerks.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to thread that needle of delivering something which will be satisfying for the fans without being like utterly.
And that's my point. Because
Yeah.
Clerks 2 is for a mainstream audience. The mainstream audience isn't coming for Clerks 3. You're not getting the release. You're not going to.
This was the one that was like both Reboot and Clerks is like they don't get wide releases anymore. He just kind of tours them with a roadshow. Like what was it, Crispin Glover and his little weird.
Yeah. Well, Clerks 3 got a limited UK one. I was going to see it, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to pay for the bus. Shows my dedication.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they're not going to make money. Like no one's going to see it. No one gives a shit about them anymore. Like it's 2023. Like times are changing. So yeah, it's a nicer way to do it than Reboot, I'd imagined.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of interesting thing. So like what's your opinion on Clerks 3? I just fucking hijacked it.
No, it's very similar. This was the first Kevin Smith film I had seen in the cinema. And that was incredibly embarrassing to be like, hello, one for Clerks 3, please. Because it didn't show in Aberdeen. I was in Glasgow on a shoot and I had some free time. So I was like, okay, I'm going to see it. I'm going to see Clerks 3. And yeah, just that. The audience was also interesting because it was like, it was in one of their biggest cinemas and there was like 4 people. Just like kind of 4, like a couple and then just like individual people sprinkled around. So it was fascinating just to see like how dead the audience for British Kevin Smith theatrical releases are in 2022. For a man who kind of at some point had his finger on the pulse, it's interesting just to see him now still trying to do it because we get NFTs,
there's
TikTok,
a lot
Tinder dates,
there's
these
a lot
nuts.
of fucking dated stuff already. That's it. Like you're gonna do pop culture, like age yourself by going far back. Like we're making fucking John Peters references, so we're like that. It's not going out of date. It'll be out of date, and people will not know what it is. But it's like. It's not like we're trying to be buzzwords. Like it's what we've learned from The Simpsons.
So you're swiping left on that idea?
Yeah, you throw back to the 30s. You go back to the fucking past to do your end.
You throw back to Silence of the Lambs, baby.
which is almost like do a Silence of the Lambs thing now is funnier than all the Clerks 2.
Just commit. Rule of 3s.
Double down. Go back down. Double down.
So things where like it's just because like a lot of them just don't even work. Like they don't like they stand. It is just it's rather than making him seem like more relevant of like, oh hey, he's still down with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
It just signals how irrelevant he is, given that like none of them really quite work. So when like Randall's like. I had to go for a prostate exam the other day, and the guy put his finger up my ass, and I was like, "What am I, your Tinder date?" And I was like, "That doesn't need like who says Tinder date?"
Randall's not saying it. Randall's not saying it. That's that's the biggest crime. You don't even know these characters. You're spouting your own shit. Like fucking Randall would be like, "Oh, what is this? Early Scorsese movie."
So it's
actually Randall would say, "I haven't been violated like that since the Phantom Menace," is the exact line he would have said. And he didn't. So
100%.
Fuck you, Kevin Smith.
Just needs to hire you as like his guru. Like, listen, we're gonna retrain you. We're gonna repair all those connections which Seth Rogen has blown out.
Yeah, because that was one thing actually I on watching Clerks 3 is when what's her name? Bojack's agent, the nurse.
Oh yeah,
and he's telling her about the Mandalorian.
Yeah,
she's obviously in the Mandalorian. I was like, that's again too fucking meta, Kevin. Get out your fucking ass. And there's a line where Randall talking about he's comparing Return of the Jedi to The Last Jedi, but in
Yeah.
a positive way. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. Randall's not talking
Randall would
about
be an incel.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, he's ready to shoot the school up. Yeah, like.
And I'll tell you about this Rose Tico. Okay, Mr. Graves.
Which is
Just
funnier,
count
which is
backwards
so
or
much fucking funnier. But yeah, so a lot of this, but a lot of pros. Recommend it if you like Kevin Smith and Clerks. If you don't,
Yeah.
never watch it.
If it had ended with the theater walkout, that would be such a fantastic mic drop for his career.
Yeah.
But instead, we get like a bunch of redundant stuff. But yeah, moving on. The only thing I want to flag up while I'm armchair diagnosing Kevin Smith, I think it's kind of weird to cast your daughter's boyfriend as a younger version of your character.
Yep. I mean, the Smith family dynamics is something I want to stay out of. I don't. That can of worms I'm not opening.
Well, that is going to be difficult to avoid as we head into our final section, other assorted Smith projects.
Okay.
So we'll just start off. He has his secret stash store in New Jersey, a store which I have actually been to.
Oh.
Before having seen any of his films, it was when I was studying on exchange, and I went to New York for a little while, and a friend was like, "Oh, would you be able to get me like a signed Kevin Smith book from his store?" I was like, "Do you realize it's a little bit of a trek from Manhattan, right?" But nevertheless, I went on the pilgrimage to New Jersey. I hopped on the train and I went to Kevin Smith's store. Not having seen anything, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool for nerds, I guess." So the statue of the Buddy Christ, and yeah, I've been to Askew Universe Mecca.
Yeah.
Next up, we have their cameo in Scream 3.
Yes.
Jay and Silent Bob cameo on that. I guess we need to
I remember that. I remember.
Yeah.
It's weird because this is where my Scream and scary movies start blending together by Scream 3. Yeah, like there's nothing to say. It's a very shoehorned in cameo. It opens up questions of canonicity in the universes. Yeah. But other than that, I have nothing to say. I like Scream 3 though, but it isn't nice.
I think Scream 3 inspired Jay and Silent Bob or something. Like seeing how he was like, seeing the feedback, the audience reception to them in Scream 3 did make me ring a little bit more out of them than
it does though,
otherwise.
because now they're becoming like pop culture, not just niche stoner things like Cheech and Chong again. Once you're out and doing something and you're on a sketch show and you're on other movies, that's when you're going to make it.
We've been trashing him a lot. I haven't been quite as cruel as I feared I would be.
Yeah,
but
no,
we do need to shout him
fair.
out. We do need to shout him out for his role in Southland Tales as an actor. Southland Tales, of course, masterpiece. And Kevin Smith stars as a veteran, like an Iraq War veteran in that, I think. And he's good. Like, he's good. He delivers a good performance. He's far better being directed by other people than he is being directed by himself.
Yeah.
We would be remiss if we were not to discuss the tweet, which for many people who do not really watch movies as obsessively as we do, Kevin Smith is known, secondary is his filmmaking, and primarily he is known as the author of the infamous Taint tweet. So in 2009, he tweeted, 10 years in and we bone like we're cheating on each other with each other. A decade plus and her clit/brown/taint area still pones my dick. So a lot of people say this is the most embarrassing tweet which has ever been posted by a human being. Kevin Smith, 5 years later, posted a follow-up tweet where he revealed that he lost a bet with his wife, and the loser had to tweet the most embarrassing thing that the other one could think of. Some people have said that is him trying to trying to make an excuse, but I think we have to give him this one. Credit to Jennifer.
I'm sticking with
Smith.
I'm sticking with Don't Back Down. Fucking go on about the taint more. Like more descriptive. Don't give in to them.
Another thing I love about Kevin Smith is the cartoons of Jay and Silent Bob crying whenever someone died.
Yes.
Do you know about these things?
Yes.
I think it was mostly 2016 because he
I
did
remember
Prince.
when they're the Great Death Year and every dropping like flies. Yes, I remember.
He did Prince. He did Rickman. I can't remember. I think he did Bowie. Might have been the other one I can remember. The first two he had like personal connections with. Like he made that Prince documentary, and he
Mhm.
obviously like worked with Alan Rickman. But like he would do these whenever a celebrity died, he would post. And it was almost like the Limmy
Mhm.
charity do tweet became like, okay, the Queen is dead. Let's wait for Kevin Smith to post the obligatory cartoon of Jay and Silent Bob crying by the Queen's grave. I don't know why he stopped doing them because that was like that was one of my favorite memes, and indeed, the hope will be that when I one day pass my this
Mhm.
this is me going on record with my will and testament. When I die, my only request is that you announce my death with a Kevin Smith, Jay and Silent Bob cartoon.
Excellent.
He Jay and Silent Bob also have a cameo in Drake's video to "I'm Upset," which is a kind of Big Degrassi reference.
Mhm.
So they run around in a Drake video. Kevin Smith is a voice in the Audible Sandman series. Would you like to guess who he plays?
I go tell me.
It's the pumpkin guy.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
uh,
Mark Hamill, so little
Mark,
cock knocker.
that's it all proven together, actually. Yeah, shit.
Okay, this is the closest we have to another Kevin Smith film. He was a part of a big holidays anthology where a bunch of filmmakers made holiday themed horror films, and Kevin Smith tackled Halloween. So this film I had a great experience with because I watched this with Isaiah, who I referenced earlier. I think we were snowed in or something, and so we're just looking for something to watch on Netflix. And we're like, oh, the horror anthology with Kevin Smith. Let's watch
Mhm.
this. And his entry is horrendous because it's like it starts off with like it's Halloween and some cam girls are living with a an abusive pimp. And I
Okay.
was like, does Kevin Smith not understand how sex
No,
work
no.
works? Maybe I'm naive because I'm sure like Andrew Tate and like, his Loverboy method have done things where I'm like, okay, maybe there are these houses of trafficked women who just broadcast. But I was like, camming isn't something that you have a pimp for.
Hmm.
I was like, did these girls not have like a broadband connection? But it's very odd in that this guy is kind of like luring American women into working as sex workers. One of the sex workers, unsurprisingly, is Harley Quinn Smith,
Of
and
course.
it's really fucking bizarre because one of the lines I have written down is like, "We can't be camming. There's no audience on Halloween." As if Halloween is some event when like horny perverts sit
Yeah.
down with their family, right? Like
Yeah.
around like a table. Like everyone knows the internet is closed on Halloween. Like so basically it's hard to tackle, but they basically do the captured trafficked women basically do a feminism of like they kill the guy and I think they anally violate him while delivering some like empowering message about how when three or more women get together, it's a coven and there's power in the female, and it's just it's really embarrassing because it's Kevin Smith kind of doing Joss Whedon Buffy
Yeah.
the Vampire Slayer. Like it's I'm really not doing it justice, but it is a horrendous watch, and there's so many little details about it, such as the fact that one of the actors who is alongside Harley Quinn is an Australian,
Okay.
so she can't really pronounce R's very well, and yet Kevin Smith basically has her saying the word whore every other sentence. And she does this weird kind of baby talk, like, "Are you saying I'm a whore?" Um, yeah. So, thus concludes the holidays anthology. Couple other projects to mention. I watched the directorial debut of Jason Mewes,
Oh yes.
Madness in the Method, where Jay becomes a method actor and kills people. it's kind of just like exactly what you would expect. It's just Jay doing his own version of Silent Bob
Yeah,
reboot. You would think it had been written by him, but basically I think it was written by some fans who then talked him into
yeah.
directing it.
Muse ain't writing. There's no way Muse is writing. That's not happened.
And so the only other projects we have to discuss are essentially a couple of web series.
Well, the only
um,
two things I want to talk about that haven't been covered
yeah,
is obviously Die Hard 4. We
yeah,
touched on it. But this
yeah,
is probably his biggest acting performance that isn't a
yeah,
Kevin Smith role. It also gets him in with Justin Long to have a nice
yeah,
start of a friendship. I don't know what Die Hard 4 is called in the country you're listening to. Is it Live Free or Die Hard or 4.0 or whatever the fuck it's called? He's fine.
yeah.
He's not great. Is a weird.
He's well cast.
He's well cast as a schlubby hacker. Justin Long's like I like Die Hard 4. I don't think it's great.
Yeah,
Sorry, Clerks 2. It's okay. He's okay in it though. Like I don't think he
yeah, yeah.
deserves any shit from that. It's a good way to get contact. Working with Bruno, working with Justin Long. It's
Yeah.
where all the motions are set to where he's going to go. I also watched recently the documentary for Superman Lives,
Oh wow,
which
yeah.
we haven't discussed. Them. The documentary itself is unnecessary. There's not enough to talk about for an hour and a half,
Yeah.
really, other than John Peter's Spider,
When he's
Nicolas
told it
Cage.
all on a
Yeah,
podcast,
like
countless
what?
times.
Listen to it. It's nice to see Burton and to see other people's point of view and stuff.
Yeah.
I think, for the record, Kevin Smith would have wrote a terrible Superman Lives. I think Burton and Cage could have had something fun. I think Peters would have turned it into something crazy. I think
Yeah.
Kevin Smith would not have been able to write Superman Lives. I think
I haven't read any of his comic books.
I did, yeah,
So,
maybe neither have I.
yeah.
Neither. I'm just judging his movies. I think he's someone that loves comic books. Again, when we're saying with like the soy face reactions to things, like he doesn't have that subjective objective thing I always talk about. Everything's just wicked and cool, and Superman flies in and kicks ass. Like he can't think of like real characters. These human he can't write human beings. He can write
Yeah.
caricatures, and yeah, like I'm glad it didn't get made, and I'm glad because I would have loved to have seen it, but I don't think Kevin. I think he would have been the worst part of it and turned it into schlock that I like, not the fun Schumacher schlock I would have wanted, but just
Yeah.
like almost like a prototype of Marvel's current output. But it's still fascinating to see how high regard he was in like '97 and how you are working with like Burton, John Peters, writing a Superman film. Like you're someone, and it's crazy to think how relevant and big because we still talk about Tarantino. A 12-year-old knows who Tarantino is. The Wes Andersons of the world stay around, but Kevin Smith's not relevant anymore. And it was quite weird to see how kids know Tim Burton but not Kevin. Yeah, that's kind of all I got to say about it. I'm glad it didn't get made. I don't want him to do any cape shit. Basically, talk about it on a podcast. Other than that, though, I only have. Oh yeah, he's cameo in Disaster Artist as well.
Yeah, of course.
But
Yeah.
I hate the Disaster Artist, and
Yeah.
this just solidifies my like, fuck you. You're just fuck you. Yeah. So yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I'm not watching any of these voiceover work. I'm not watching any of the View SU, the Jason Lee movie that he produced.
Yeah.
I'm not going to anything that is not hands-on Kevin himself.
Yeah. So we are, of course, primarily a film podcast. Don't really acknowledge the existence of television. But he made a web series in lockdown called Sun in Lockdown, which was him goofing off with Harley Quinn's boyfriend who moves in with them. It's that kind of like classic sitcom odd couple, but the odd couple is Harley Quinn's dad and Harley Quinn's boyfriend. It's as something made during the pandemic, as a family film with a camcorder, has some merits, maybe not for the rest of the world to see. But the thing I do want to discuss is Kevin Smith directed a pilot for a TV show in 2018 titled Hollyweed.
Oh.
So in 2018, a 50-year-old man who was introduced to marijuana by Seth Rogen decides he has something to add to the stoner genre.
Oh.
And so the pilot didn't get picked up by anyone, and then it got like kind of revealed, launched, shown through some startup, which was basically like kind of trying to do a Kickstarter thing for pilots, where they were like, like all the networks passed on this, but like maybe we could crowdfund it if you like this and give us your money.
Mhm.
And no one did. Hollyweed stars Kevin Smith and Donal Rawlings as the owners of a dispensary, and it's
I'm
like
looking it up right now.
that's their Paddy's Pub.
Yeah.
Is they own the Hollyweed dispensary, and it's going to be like each adventure of the week. And so the pilot is so fucking bad because Kevin Smith, like, he's miscast. Like, it doesn't work with a guy who's 50. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't work with a couple guys in their 50s. Because I'm like, why is he a weed delivery boy? He's lived too much life. Like, what has he done before this? But Kevin Smith gets sent to a porn shoot to deliver some weed, and there he discovers that it is the porn actor's birthday, and she's doing a double penetration scene. And he's like, "No, man, come on, you can't be doing that on your birthday. Let me take you out of here." And so he saves her, saves the sex worker, takes her away, and like, honestly, 20 minutes of the 30-minute runtime is just Kevin Smith flirting with a porn star. And then they chat for a while, and he's like, "You know what? Let me make an honest woman out of you. Why don't you come and work at the dispensary with us?"
Mhm.
And then some stuff happens, and then she robs the dispensary, and she leaves a note being like, "You're the only man who's ever been nice to me, and I'm sorry that I'm fucking you, as opposed to the way in which I wanted to fuck you with your big, lovely dick." And it's just truly like it's John Derek levels of wish fulfillment.
Wow.
Where I'm like, how is
Wow.
he getting away with this?
Well, he's not, because the pilot doesn't get picked up at the very least,
Yeah.
This is in season 19 we're on of Hollyweed, so
Yeah.
he doesn't get away with it. I'm going to watch this pilot. I will. I will. I'm. You've got me hooked now. I'm curious. Is any well, Mosier's not here.
Regulars in
Yeah, Mosier's not here, but who is
No.
here?
Garmin's in it. Garmin's in it playing Kurt Russell. Garmin's in it as Snake Plissken.
No.
And Jason Mewes is in it as like just a homeless guy who they are like, "Hey, do you want some of the like shit weed?" He's like, "Sure, man. I'm gonna wash in your bathroom sink." But honestly, yeah, it's truly bizarre in that he's like written this little fantasy where he rescues a porn star, and then she is like, "Oh yeah, no, it's truly a bizarre act of wish fulfillment." The only thing I can say in its defense is that I'm grateful his daughter did not play the porn star.
No, she's in it though, right? Of course.
She is in it, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Jobs for the
John.
not boys, but the family. Jobs for the daughters. So yeah, we're mostly out of Smith material. He's of course a famed podcaster, as we've covered. I did listen to a couple of his podcasts after a friend recommended it. Particularly, I like the early episodes of Fat Man on Batman, where he was interviewing some interesting people. And then he was speaking about how he was like, I think it was when Batman versus Superman came out, and he was like, "Well, was this the greatest movie in the world? No, but it had fucking parademons, man. I got to see my bro being Batman. I got to see Affleck being fucking Batman, and it had parademons. So you know what? 10 out of 10. 5 stars." And then you assume like, "Oh, if I was Batman, I'd just be kneecapping motherfuckers from left to right. I'd be kneecapping MFers." And it just got too grating where I was like, this man like fundamentally doesn't understand the character.
Yep, that's what I was
He's
saying.
just like, "Oh, Batman would be cool if he like was shooting people and just."
Yep, that's what I was saying about Superman. He's not a writer. He doesn't get complex.
He doesn't understand the key to.
It's just wow.
I know people have said that his Daredevil stuff is good, and Daredevil's probably the closest to him in terms of being a Northeast Irish Catholic with who's vision impaired. I guess he's the closest to Kevin Smith's actual persona. But yeah, I don't think, I can't imagine him being a great comic book writer. But we will, of course, bring things to a close. We have endeavored to do our best with a complete summary of Kevin Smith's career.
Very extensive on Kevin. So I never got this treatment.
But there is, of course, a glaring black hole He has a number of films in production, including the Moose Jaws end to the Canada trilogy. He's got a feature, Helena Handbag, in production. Twilight of the Mallrats is apparently in
Oh God.
development. And a movie entitled The 4:30 Movie is scheduled for release next year. But there is actually a Kevin Smith film which has been released at this point in time we were not able to watch.
Yeah.
Of course, speaking about Kilroy Was Here, his film about the cartoon trend,
Yes.
which he released as an NFT.
Yeah, I was sitting there. Yeah, I don't know anything about this movie. I tried looking it up, tried finding it with the laziest. Two searches, and I was like, nah, you're not right. I'm not going that hard. I'm sure I could find this if I wanted to.
I don't think you could. I've looked.
Yeah, no, challenge accepted. But yeah, like, I don't know, does it count? I guess Tarantino wouldn't count an NFT movie, so maybe Smith is treating it as his perfect 10. Yeah, I know I've nothing to add until it's to be seen. I don't even know if it was any good. I don't know if anyone's seen it. I've known nothing.
Yeah. So it was apparently screened. Like, he has screened it at his cinema because he owns, like, I think he's like the New Jersey Tarantino of Tarantino has the New Bev in LA, and Kevin Smith has, like, it might be the Smod Castle actually. They have screened it to people there, so it's not just the NFT owners, like the NFT freaks who've seen it. Because, like, you would think at this point in time the only people watching Kevin Smith movies are the devoted fans, and it's maybe quite a savvy move to then get the fucking, like, ape psychos who aren't Kevin Smith fans but who were just, like, hoping the NFTs would take off.
Yeah.
And we're just like, okay, well, I've never liked him before, but now he has my attention. So yeah, Kevin Smith's cinema, it is Smod Cinemas, and I saw on Twitter a while ago they had a Harleywood double bill where they screened a double feature of Yoga Hosers followed by Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, fuck yeah, I forgot she's in that, isn't she? Fuck.
Does he hate his daughter? Because Yoga Hosers is a fucking embarrassment. And she's an extra in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, I can't remember. She doesn't even get named, does it? It's like, she's just like Buttercup or Mimi.
Yeah,
or
she's
Sweet.
a Manson girl, but she's not like Squeaky or whatever wants to speak.
Yeah, you're
like,
one of the other ones. Yeah, you're not.
There I am over Lena Dunham's left shoulder for a split second. So yeah,
hell. You know them showing Once Upon a Time though.
Yeah.
Good on him.
Yoga Hosers and Once Upon a Time back to back.
In that order is fucking funny as well. You're making people wait for Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, everyone would just leave after Hollywood. Okay, so that concludes our latest special.
The only thing I would add at the end of this is what are any Razzie worthy? Any Razzie worthy pictures, in your opinion?
Yoga Hosers was the Hillary year, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yoga Hosers is Razzie worthy.
Okay.
But otherwise, it would just be components.
Yes. Yeah, I sort of agree with that. Mostly, I would like to see Cop Out get director at the very least. The whole film, no, but yeah, you don't do anything, deserve something. I would not mind seeing some worse writing as well, like worse screenplay pop up, because some of this is shit. But yeah, no, like they're the big ones. I'm surprised Jersey Girl never got dragged under the coals. I'm surprised
because these things all have, like, what we've spoken about, the Mr. Razzie narrative of, like, the quality of the film is almost irrelevant.
Yep.
But, like, Affleck and Bruno were both, like, you would grab tabloid headlines.
That's exactly it. So they're the two that, like, again, not do I consider them worst picture for the year? That's not the question. If I'm in the brain of a 50-year-old hack, would I make them worst picture?
He's not going to be going for Jason Mewes, but Affleck and Willis are on the radar for
and
sure.
That's why Jersey Girl and Cop Out are my two Razzie picks out of his filmography. Other than that, as a wrap up, watch the Clerks animated show, watch Clerks, watch Dogma, watch Red State. That's about it. And sail off into the sunset.
So we're going to be returning from back over the sunset next week, when we will be resuming our Razzie quest for the final stretch with 2004's Catwoman.